Hello everyone, welcome back to Ask a Scientist Gaming, where we combine mediocre gameplay with expert level science. I'm Ken Hansen, Associate Professor of Chemistry and Biochemistry at Florida State University. I do color chemistry, light matter interactions, dyes, pigments for applications in solar cells, catalysis, whatever it might be. If light hits it, I'm interested in it. But more importantly, joining me today is Wally Boot. Wally, if you wouldn't mind just telling the audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name's Wally Boot. I'm a professor of psychology here in the Department of Psychology at Florida State University. I'm a cognitive psychologist. I study how people think and how that applies to the performance of everyday tasks. I have interest in aging. I have interest in technology. We do a lot of research, human factors research, looking at how to best design technology for older adults at risk for social isolation, how to improve well-being. And I also do a lot of research looking at how we can use video games to understand skill acquisition and expertise. So a whole bunch of different things.
So what do you typically teach?
So I typically teach cognition, perception. I teach human factors. I teach attention, and just a variety of different courses.
Makes sense. All right. Equally important, what game are we starting with today?
We'll start with Sonic.
Sonic the Hedgehog, an all-time classic. There it is. The iconic SEGA voice. That'll forever be burned into my brain. Talk about learning via video games. That sound alone just permanently written. All right. So this is any particular reason we started with Sonic?
I mean, it's kind of one of the games I remember from childhood that I might still be somewhat good at. I played it enough when I was a gamer back then.
Yeah.
But it's a classic.
Yeah. So this was the Mario killer, as they tried to market it.
Yeah.
Right? This was going to put Nintendo off the pedestal of dominating gameplay. It didn't do that, but
It's still a pretty
it put
good
Sega
game.
on the map, right?
Yeah, it holds up.
Yeah. People are still playing this. I think the recent record was fairly recent. It was like a couple months ago, actually. Yeah, classic music, exactly. All right, we'll give you some time to settle in.
Okay.
The other question we have is, what are we drinking tonight?
We are drinking Reef Dweller by Deep. It's a local brewery.
So this is Tallahassee-based, right?
Yes. It's right down the road from where I live, so it's very convenient.
That's awesome. Reef Dweller. When did they start? This was...
They've been around for a while.
Okay. Tallahassee has a pretty vibrant brewing community.
Yeah.
I mean, between Proof and them, and there's one more that's on it's on Monroe. I can't remember the name of it.
Oh,
Oh,
I
the
remember
bonus
this
stage.
part. Yeah.
Look at that. Note that we're using cheat codes. We're doing infinite lives here, so it's a high likelihood we'll be able to beat this game. We also have a God mode code that we're going to bust out. All right. So you've had time to warm up a little bit.
Okay.
Everyone, we're going to open it up for questions. If you have questions for Wally Boot, he's happy to talk about cognition, learning, how video games influences learning, anything you might want to discuss. Let's do it. Are we going to discuss cognitive impairment of alcohols with Sonic as a measurement? That is an excellent. Funny you say that. Like, I speedrun some games. I think alcohol, to a certain extent, is a performance enhancer. And the reason is it helps calm your nerves.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's true for, like, archery and shooting exercises, right? They actually test for alcohol because it's a performance enhancer. I'm not sure about Sonic on a Wednesday night, having not played it in, how long has it been?
Oh, probably 30 years. Is that right?
30 years. I don't think we're worried about performance enhancement here. But anyway, if anyone has questions, we're happy to talk about cognition, learning as related to video games, as applied to video games. Also how it affects elderly and their ability to learn. So just go ahead and throw your questions in chat right now. Oh no. I forgot about that death noise. That's devastating. How old is Sonic? Ooh, first Sonic game. So this is the first one.
It's 91, I think.
Let's see if we have...
I did my
we have a
research.
list of games here. Sonic Hedgehog 1991. What research is there? So Reese's Pieces wants to know, what research is there about the development of visual spatial reasoning from 3D games?
So there's been a lot of research looking at what games can teach us, and looking at the concept essentially of transfer of training, of if we use video games and commercial video games like action video games, could we use this as a way to train up spatial skills and visual skills? There's been a lot of research. Some of it's controversial. So in 2003, there was a really important paper that came out by Sean Green and Daphne Vallier, suggesting that action video games actually improve a variety of spatial and attention and visual abilities, even after just about 10 hours of gameplay. So they had people play Medal of Honor or Tetris, and found the people who played Medal of Honor improved on a variety of visual abilities and spatial abilities. Our lab has tried to look at some of these effects, and we don't think that those effects are probably as robust as they were originally made out to be. So it's a little bit controversial, but it's a very big area of research these days.
Wait, so is Medal of Honor better or worse than Tetris?
The claim was that it's better because it kind of exercises abilities such as multiple object tracking. You have to keep track of multiple things at the same time. Useful field of view, your ability to extract visual kind of peripheral information because you have to detect enemies and your basically visual discrimination abilities. So the claim is that these action video games improve a host of abilities. But again, our lab tends not to find these large effects. Other labs tend to find these large effects, so it's still a little bit uncertain. Like the brain training literature in general.
Yeah, I mean it's hard, and I've had this discussion before with like Sarah Hart, who's a psychologist, and then Don Carr, who's a sociologist. The variables are so large, right? The number of things, it's really tough to isolate.
Yeah, I mean,
with that said, I'm going to say anecdotally, video games made me better at driving, but I don't know if that's true. But it's one of those things, like, especially the first-person shooters, right? They require you to watch several things simultaneously and pay attention to maps and all sorts of stuff simultaneously. But again, it's...
Okay, so...
Congratulations for first boss done. So those of you not familiar with Sonic, you go around picking up coins, and that's essentially your health bar. If you get hit, you drop all your coins, but you can pick those coins back up afterwards. So you can, as long as you have a coin, you're still alive. Then eventually you die. Reese's Pieces follow-up. I'd imagine video games with maps and other games with complex spaces to navigate would lend themselves towards the effects rather than games that don't emphasize these.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what this literature is trying to figure out. They compare different games with different cognitive demands and spatial demands to try to figure out if these games have these abilities, what are the improvements that you would see from different games. And I think the Vallier lab has been focusing largely on action video games, although there is a kind of pretty big literature on Tetris as well. Looking at Tetris and spatial abilities, that there's a long tradition of kind of exploring these types of issues. And especially thinking about kind of gender or sex differences in spatial skills. There's some literature that's looked at, could you eliminate these differences with games that exercise spatial cognition?
Yeah, I think the spatial cognition is a really underappreciated. So speaking as a gamer, like I play a lot of Halo back in the day.
Yeah.
So first-person shooters, if you didn't know the map, if you didn't know where people were, you're dead in the water. You can't be competitive with that.
Yeah, I mean,
so the question is, does it translate to real world?
Yeah, and I think that there's kind of different schools of thought on this. I mean, one way to approach these types of problems is to look for training that would transfer. So can an action video game transfer to useful field of view ability or ability to extract visual information, or can Tetris transfer to spatial ability? But another way to think about this is maybe it's more efficient to just train people on the things you want them to get good at. Since the idea of transfer of training is somewhat controversial and not always seen, if you want someone to be a better driver, maybe the better way to go about that is to train people with driving skills or train people on a driving simulator or something like that.
Yeah.
So our lab has been more on the side of, if you want people to get better. Oh, I am so not doing this right.
That's fine. You got a checkpoint.
Okay.
We also have infinite lives. So
okay. Oh,
I mean, so there was I remember a claim fairly recently that said people that game made better surgeons, and it's because of finger dexterity. Is there anything founded in that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are those types of studies that are somewhat hard to interpret because I mean, you see these studies where you look at video game playing surgeons versus non-video game playing surgeons, and the video game playing surgeons might have better dexterity, but it's all correlational. I mean, you don't have that training study to say maybe. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times when you look at these cross-sectional studies, you don't know whether the game is improving the ability or the people with superior abilities kind of self-select towards those games. So it's kind of like watching people play basketball and then assume that playing basketball makes you taller. It's not the case that playing basketball makes you taller. It's the case that people who are good at basketball tend to be taller on average.
Yeah, that is an excellent analogy. I appreciate that.
So that's why these intervention studies where you take non-video game players and you train them up on different types of video games may be the better way to go. And I think there you find more mixed results in terms of potential benefits. So my sense is that some of it is kind of a self-selection type of effect, but there may be some small effect of training as well.
Tropical Cyclone is upset. Has anyone noticed this gameplay is well above mediocre? Nice. We take that here. We'll take those compliments. All right.
Is that someone I know that's saying that?
But maybe. I don't know who Tropical Cyclone is. Codemaster wants to know, does Among Us increase your rate of making creative strategies? Are you familiar with Among Us?
I'm somewhat familiar with that. Like I said in my profile, I'm not a very active current gamer other than some kind of VR games. But yeah, I mean, I think I'm still somewhat skeptical that there are these large transfer effects from specific video games to specific abilities. I think the games tend to be different enough from the things that you want people to be better at that you tend not to get large transfer effects. Although, I mean, that's just kind of my opinion. I think anyone who's interested in these, I mean, these are studies that we could run. I mean, that's the best part about this is that they're empirical answers to these questions, and we could run these studies.
Just give us money.
Yeah, no.
That's all we need is funding.
Yeah.
We will answer every one of these questions.
NIH, give us money.
Oh, it's NIH that mostly funds this? Is that
well, I mean, our research,
the elderly related?
Yeah, is largely funded by the National Institutes of Health. We also have a funding from NIDLR, which is the National Institute on Disability, Independent Living, Rehabilitation Research, which a lot of our research these days is focused on designing technology to help older adults with cognitive impairments live and engage with their community through technology. And it's a big area where technology tends not to be designed well for older adults, and technology tends to be designed by younger adults for younger people. So there's always the risk of older adults with cognitive impairments, specifically like mild cognitive impairment or cognitive impairment due to dementia or traumatic brain injury, that they're going to be locked out of the benefits of most modern technology because they're not considered in design.
I mean, so that's going to be a very different landscape in about 30 years. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really challenging field, yeah, because the technology is always changing and the people are always changing, the cohorts are always changing. But I don't think we'll be out of a job anytime soon when we're studying kind of how to design technology best for older adults, where if the technology keeps on changing, we know that as we age, the rate of learning slows down. So it's always going to be kind of harder for older people to learn new technology compared to younger people. So I think it's always going to be relevant that there may always be this digital divide between older and younger adults in terms of technology adoption and technology proficiency.
As we sit here and play a 1991 video game. But we're streaming over Twitch. That kind of makes up for it, right? The digital divide is a good way to describe it. I like it. All right. Bitter Dan wants to know, hopefully not too bitter, what are the effects of playing video games on things like dementia and memory issues in the elderly?
Yeah, so there have been some studies, and we've done some of these studies as well, finding really pretty mixed effects on games and the effects of games on dementia and cognition in older adults. I think there are some positive studies, there are some negative studies. So it's really hard to make kind of solid recommendations. There's a very, very large literature on, for example, brain games. And although some of those results are promising, I think there tends to be serious flaws with some of this research as well in terms of how the studies are conducted and designed, where it's hard to interpret some of these results. Oh no.
Speaking of which, that's probably a good time to do the Lumosity prediction.
Okay.
Huh? What do you think?
Sure.
We have several of them. All right, everyone, it's time to start spending some internet points. Let me throw this prediction in here right now. So there are software that promise, magnificent learning games. One of them being Lumosity. Right?
Lumosity, yeah.
Lumosity, sorry.
It's a weird name.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to throw a prediction up there right now. If you guys don't have standard internet units, click the follow button, get your 300 standard internet units. You can bet on predictions. In our case, it's science-related questions, also sometimes game-related predictions. I'm going to pop that prediction up right now. And so the question is, how much did Lumosity pay for false advertising? And so again, is it 2 million or is it 20 million? So is there a backstory you want to share on this without giving the answer?
Yeah, so I think in 2016, I believe it was, Federal Trade Commission had looked at the science behind cognitive training and Lumosity in particular, and looked at some of the advertisements that were being kind of put on radio and TV all over the place, and found a huge mismatch between the science and what they were claiming. So Lumosity was claiming this could make you a better athlete. It will help you in your job. It will make you a better student. It could prevent cognitive aging, making all these claims. And then the Federal Trade Commission got involved and kind of looked at this and filed I think there was a complaint filed and then a settlement that eventually kind of they had to pay for a false advertisement.
All right, you have about 45 seconds. Remember, you're on Ask a Scientist Gaming honor code. Don't look up the answer on Google. Do your best guess, or if you know the answer, put the answer in, obviously. But again, the question is, Lumosity had to pay because they did false advertising. How much did they pay? Was it 2 million or 20 million? That was a huge company. Like, that was a... Yeah,
it was one of the biggest cognitive training companies, and still is one of the biggest.
Oh, it still is?
Yeah.
They just toned back their advertising, and then they can still
So basically, if you've ever kind of heard an ad from Lumosity in the last few years, you can't even tell what the product is because they're not allowed to say that it improves anything. So they can say it will challenge your memory, it can challenge your attention, but they can't say it will improve anything.
I see. So they've toned down. All right. So what's the outcome? Is it 20 million or 2 million?
So for me, for the right answer?
Yep.
So it was initially much higher, the penalty, but they settled for $2 million. Plus they had to contact all of their subscribers and basically tell their subscribers, hey, this doesn't work.
Wow. They had to email everyone that had bought their product.
But yeah. Oh, I'm kind of stuck here now.
Yeah, it should come back.
Yeah.
All right, so the answer is 2 million. Is that right?
Yep.
All right, congratulations. Enjoy your standard internet units. It was 4 people said 2 million, 3 people said 20 million. So they made a lot, right? They made
they made a lot of money.
Tens of millions off of this, and then they had to pay a minor fine of 2 million. Reese's Pieces has redeemed Take a Drink.
Okay.
Wally, thank you for joining me on a Wednesday night to play some Sonic, drink, and talk science with everyone on the internet. Everyone on the internet, thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure. It's great to have you here. Let's talk about video games and science.
Thanks for the invitation.
Lumosity.
I don't know if that thing is ever going to come back.
Oh, you got one ring left.
Yeah.
So you can commit to the jump. So there.
Oh.
Cheers for lying about science. Oh, man. $2 million. Like,
Yeah.
at some point, it's worth creating a company, lying your ass off, paying the fine, and just walking away. Like, that's an effective business model, what we've just learned, right? That's kind of crazy. All right. Bitter Dan wants to know, do games that require quick reactions translates to other tasks requiring quick reactions?
So there's plenty of data, and we found this in our own data as well, that video game players outperform non-video game players on lots of response time, reaction time types of tasks, typically by about 10 or 11%. But again, I think it's hard to interpret that because are the video games improving their response time, or are people with good response times drawn to video games? Nobody likes to do things that they're bad at. So if you have to be fast for video games, people will self-select into the things that they're good at. And I mean, some studies train people and see, and the results again are mixed. And maybe one explanation for this is that when you're comparing video game experts to video game novices, you're talking about people who have played hundreds or thousands of hours of video games, and the studies that kind of assess the interventions only train people for maybe 10 to 50 hours. So there are some explanations for why you might see cross-sectional effects, but not training effects.
That's interesting. 10%. I mean, that's a notable. What's a meaningful difference in your study?
No, I mean, if you can think about driving, the difference, for example, in a small reaction time difference in driving can translate to a stopping distance of maybe 100 feet or more, depending on how quick you are to apply the brakes. So it can be meaningful to kind of be a 10% difference.
That's non-trivial. All right, Scuzzbot Wotus wants to know, are there studies of real-time strategy or what does MMO stand for? It's open world, multiplayer open world games. Typically require large quantities of information to be held at once.
So yeah, we've done some studies, and some of our colleagues have done studies with a game called Rise of Nations, which we have a tradition. I use this partly for my dissertation study. Oh, I got to start all the way back. Can I? Yeah, I know we've used a Rise of Nations, and I'm not really good at dual tasking, so maybe I need some training.
No, it's literally in our description. Mediocre gameplay.
But yeah, we've used the game Rise of Nations, which is an older real-time strategy game with kind of younger and older adults. And I mean, sometimes we kind of find small effects, sometimes we find no effects. And I guess that kind of gets back to our general kind of philosophy in the lab and training is that if you want someone to get good at something, train them on that task, give them experience with the thing you want them to get good at. And that's probably the best way to improve performance on anything. The general strategy of kind of brain training, of kind of training someone on something that's different from the thing, the target task, that is kind of probably not the best way to go or the most efficient way to go.
I mean, so like the age of virtual reality and Oculus, and the goggles, I mean, that's transitioning where you can mimic real situations or real responses. Is that going to be huge?
I think that's probably, that's probably the way to go. And I think if you want to train people, and there's some kind of good virtual reality simulator types of studies. For example, how do you train people for technology that doesn't exist yet? So big in the autonomous vehicle literature, there's a big deal about how do you train people for when the automation fails. So you're driving your car, and at some point, well, the car is driving you, it's automated, and at some point, the car might say, hey, I don't know what to do in this situation, you take over, which is a very scary thing. So you don't want that to be the first time that that happens to you, is kind of in the real situation. Why do I keep doing that? So basically, you can use a kind of virtual reality to train people on how to deal with these low probability events. I mean, this is essentially, we've done a lot of driving simulator studies, which kind of operate by the same principle. You don't want to study people in the situation that's dangerous. You don't want to study people in a situation where they could get hurt or cause damage. So you can train people using simulators, and then they'll know what to do. And that's more of a direct transfer of training, that it looks and feels exactly like the situation that you want them to improve their performance in. So there's a pretty direct relationship between what they should be doing, what they're seeing, and it's a much better approach.
And so, practical question. So I run a research group. I have a lot of chemistry students. Most of them are interested in saving the world by making better solar cells. Grad students that come to you, are they like, I like video games, and this is like, who's your sample?
So yeah, I mean, our lab does a lot of different things, and some of them want to come to the lab and do video game stuff, and some are really interested in other things.
Wow, the body parts.
Yes.
I did not know that.
I just feel like I'm really doing terrible.
No worries.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff I'm really interested in these days is using maybe video games as a paradigm to understand expertise. So if you think about like a chess expert, it may take them kind of 10 years to become a grandmaster or something like that. And maybe video games are a way we can study kind of skill acquisition in a more short-term scale, that we can look at kind of the people who do extremely well at these games. We can look at the people who do extremely poorly. And this can be kind of a way that we understand what does it take to be the very best type of player in this game. Kind of analogous to the expert performance approach of looking at what does it take to become the best chess player or the best violinist or whatever.
I mean, so that's interesting. Not a lot of people would compare video gaming to playing the violin, but
yeah,
it's dexterity, right? It's learned repetition and response. Like,
I'm just gonna make the same mistake over and over again.
Oh no! But
come on!
ring.
Oh, come on!
Nice.
Okay.
All right.
I'm gonna try to focus this time.
Okay. We'll give you a break. We will not drop any knowledge or question bombs on you.
I just need to get past this one part.
You still got your shield.
So I don't know if I should just run across it and just... Because I think I'm just jumping when it's too high. I think I need to jump.
Nice.
Now I need some kind of save point. Oh no.
As long as you get his head, I think it's okay. There's got to be a save somewhere here, right?
Oh no.
Oh, you got 10 rings.
I'm gonna be very careful.
High pressure moment, ladies and gentlemen.
Don't make me think about science, please.
Nope. Oh, that's fun. I didn't know this had... I don't think Sonic 2 has the downward brick breaking. And his shield. Nice.
Oh, don't screw it up. Okay. Oh! Oh, I want that.
Yep.
I'm just gonna roll for it.
Seems like you should be able to fit under that. This game's so unrealistic. Star power for Sonic. You gotta be close to the end here, right?
Be.
This is it?
Oh, come on, yes.
Congratulations.
That took ridiculously long.
You get the drunk Bowser GG from us there.
Okay.
All right, let's get back to some questions. We beat the level. Victory, everyone. Scuzzbot, thank you for the high fives from the beast. All right. Tropical Cyclone has a directly relevant question about practicing applied skills.
Okay.
Have you studied any sim games like Power Washing Simulator? Maybe it makes people better at power washing.
I don't know what that is. I
think it's exactly what it sounds like.
There's a simulate power wash.
I mean, there's simulated farming, there's simulated truck driving. Like, it doesn't make you better at power washing. I mean, I guess there's a difference between, like, the mental aspect of it, and then there's the physical aspect of performing power washing.
Uh-huh.
So you need presumably some kind of 3D immersive, like fully.
Yeah, there's a study that came out not too long ago looking at spatial skills, and this was with older adults looking at kind of games that exercise spatial skills with VR. And memory performance, that spatial skills and memory are both highly dependent on the hippocampus, an area of the brain that is important for both skills. And they did find in this study that using VR and having people navigate virtual reality mazes like you would have in a lab rat, kind of navigate virtual reality mazes, did seem to improve some memory abilities in older adults. I mean, I never like to kind of go by just one study, so I think you always have to kind of take the literature as a whole, but they did at least find some kind of promising results there.
Diddly do, thank you for the sub. Again, enjoy your emotes. You have Ethanol, Rage, Mr. Big, Deity, Carl Sagan, as well as Bowser getting drunk. Good game. Again, we appreciate your support. We don't necessarily need it. It pays for beer. So we like beer, so we appreciate your support. And yeah, feel free to throw your questions in chat. We always like to answer as much as we can as we go along. All right. Just catching up on a few more. Bitter Dan wants to know, how prevalent is design for accessibility when it comes to cognitive impairment?
Not very prevalent, unfortunately. I mean, there's really still gaps for designing for normative age-related changes. So the types of cognitive changes and perceptual changes and physical changes we can all expect to experience as we age. But when we think about things like cognitive impairment, where there's even greater cognitive change, it's a relatively understudied and I think neglected area, and that's the reason why we find it's such an important and interesting area to move into. Oops. Because yeah, we have one center, the Create Center, that focuses largely on designing and technology for older adults in general. We have the Enhance Center that we've just started as well, that's funded to look at how to design technology for older adults with cognitive impairments. And I think it's kind of not smart for companies not to design for older adults. We know that there's population aging. The number of older adults will continue to rise, and over the next couple of decades, that this is going to be kind of a large consumer market. So it's going to be important to design for older adults, but it's also kind of the smart thing to do in terms of business as well.
I mean, so when you guys design a game for elderly, do you just walk into a nursing home and say, you know, we want to test this? Like, how does that?
So yeah, we've done a lot of studies on video game preferences of older adults versus younger adults, and so I mean we've done survey studies. We've done kind of usability types of studies. We're not game developers ourselves, so unfortunately we can't do that, but we do build, I think, knowledge that would be useful for people who do want to design these games. And I think one thing that, in our experience, that it's important to think about when you're designing games or thinking about designing games or game programs for older adults is that just like not all younger adults like the same games, not all older adults are going to like the same games either. So there's kind of a bit of an ageist notion to kind of say, I'm going to design games for older adults, just because
Yeah.
Older adults are variable, just like younger adults, in terms of their preferences, in terms of their abilities, in terms of their kind of desires. So yeah, I mean, I think there are certain kind of design principles we can think about when we're designing games for older adults. When we recognize, when we
that's an insta kill. Coins don't save you on a squish like that. That's pretty brutal.
I don't feel like I'm answering the questions very well.
No,
I don't think I'm dealing with the games very well either. So
this is the point.
This is, part of my research when I was in graduate school. So my research now is very, very different from what it used to be. But I used to be more of a attention researcher. And I mean, the thing that we know about attention is that divided attention tends to be really bad for all aspects of the tasks that you're doing. That when you're dividing attention between talking and games, both of those will then suffer.
Ties it all together. Yeah. Well done, sir. All right, Tropical Cyclone, thank you for the tier 1 subscription. We really appreciate the support. Cheers, you're paying for the beer tonight. We really appreciate it. Also, keep throwing your questions in chat. We will catch up on with them. If I miss one, I apologize. We'll go back to it again. Yeah, we're just gonna keep trucking along through questions as much as we can. And at some point, so we're at 8:35. Let me know when you want to put in the God mode code.
Okay, let's try that.
Let's do God mode.
Yes. It'll be good to get some other games too.
Sorry, I'm interfering. I'm gonna get the cheats on. All right, so this code basically makes it so when any bad guy touches you, or you can walk on lava.
Okay.
We are God mode, ladies and gentlemen. We can do that here at Ask a Scientist Gaming.
I'll still try.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Try to do the right thing.
Note that we can't turn off God mode, so
okay.
you're just gonna march through this game.
Even if I get squished?
I think you could still get squished.
Oh,
no. You can still fall down holes, but anyone that touches you, dead, lava, doesn't matter. This is how we turn mediocre gameplay into expert gameplay, ladies and gentlemen, by cheating. All right. Codemaster31411 wants to know, is it easier to learn/play strategy games on a board or on a computer?
I don't know if there's really much of a meaningful difference. I mean, I think most people are kind of technology proficient enough that I'm not sure if it would make a huge amount of difference. But I know with the older adult populations that we're dealing with, sometimes we encounter older adults who aren't as technology proficient, and then obviously that's going to be trying to learn two things at once, essentially, trying to learn the technology and also trying to learn the game at the same time.
Man, the learning curve for a dual joystick game, like
Okay.
that's really odd. I don't know if you've played where a first-person shooter where one strays and one aims. Like that in itself, the number of times I watch my wife like walk into walls and stare at the ceiling, and it's, I mean, you can't even start playing until you know that skill, and that's such an activation barrier, right?
Yeah,
If you've never done it before, I completely understand. That's non-trivial.
Yeah, we've got a colleague, Wendy Rogers, at University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, that's done some really great work in terms of facilitating older adults playing video games. I mean, one of the barriers is, I mean, the game might be fine, but how do you access the game? So it's really, really hard to set up the system and potentially kind of select among menus and get to the actual game. Oh, yeah, I can still die. So they've created some really good tip cards, these kind of tip cards that you can put next to the system. And they're kind of particularly interested in exergaming. So we know that all of us don't engage in the number of hours of physical activity we should in the week. So exergames are kind of a great solution. But how do you kind of help someone access those games and set things up with their controllers and sensors and all these types of things? So they've done really great work in terms of facilitating game access just by something as simple as a tip card. Because I mean, you can't go to the video game developers and say, make a better, I mean, the system is the system, it's already kind of marketed, but are there ways that we can support people using these systems in a way that doesn't require complete redesign?
Yeah. It's like user friendliness, intuition.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the things I really appreciate about the original Mario Brothers. I don't know how long it's been since you played that, but basically the start of the first level is designed so you have to walk forward, basically jump, hit a block, and kill a person.
Yeah.
And so it's basically built in those training and learning into the game mechanism. And it's, I don't know how often games are designed with that type of intent in mind, but it's brilliant. I have so much respect for people that can do that. All right, Tropical Cyclone has a follow-up question. Do you think it would be worthwhile to develop fun games that would directly translate to real-life skills?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the way to go. I think that's the challenge there is that it's hard to do that and also make it fun. so I mean,
Fair.
So that's why I think a lot of people are excited about the idea of transfer of training. Can we take fun games and can those fun games, are there things hidden within those games already that then transfer to make you better at other things? Because the game's already fun. To design a game that's both fun and teaches kind of everyday skills, that's going to be a lot harder.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so that's something I think about. So I have a almost 5-year-old and a 2-year-old right now. There's all sorts of learning games and, you know, I mean, take that statement for what it's worth. But like, so Sesame Street did their homework. They brought in psychologists when they started developing their programs. I'd make the same assumptions about their games, but is there anything I should know into going to find games for my kids?
Yeah, I mean, I think we undervalue the benefit of games just for having fun. I mean, it doesn't have to do anything. I think oftentimes in the gaming literature, it's always focused on, is this really bad for us, or is this really good for us? Does this improve perception, or does this kind of turn us into kind of killers? And really, I think, oh no, come on!
Oh man. You saw that unfold.
I saw that. I mean, my response time was not what it should have been there.
It's okay, you got a checkpoint. You're
am I even going the right way now?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay, I get a checkpoint. That's good.
That's awesome. Some more questions. Oh, quick follow-up from Bitter Dan. Showing my age, but Carmen Sandiego as a kid, both fun and educational, and I still remember facts from back then. Yeah. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Spectacular show. One of my future guests, I can't remember who it is, but they mentioned wanting to play Carmen Sandiego on stream. So that may be in the future of Ask a Scientist Gaming. We'll keep you guys posted. But yeah, there are certain things that I've learned from games that I will never forget. There's no question.
Like you can die of dysentery in Oregon Trail.
I'm surprised no one's picked that one yet. Like, that's a classic. I mean, and there's a certain, like, our age bracket. That's a go-to. Dr. Ken, listen to Dr. Boot and let your kids have fun. The irony is I probably play video games more than my kids do. So take that for what it's worth. All right. Big Spooky Skeleton wants to know, have there been any studies on video games improving literacy skills? I've always had an above average reading level, and I think it's heavy RPG gameplay. That was a big part of it.
Yeah, I don't think there have been any studies on gaming and literacy. That would be interesting, though. I mean, I think it's a great way to get kids to read in a way that might be non-traditional.
I mean, so one of the learning games that it started to come in after I learned this particular skill, but the typing game.
Yes.
Where you type letters and shoot things, and like, those are a lot of fun. Like, I'll even play those now sometimes. But that goes back to you're actually doing the skill that you need to do. So it's directly translatable then, I guess.
So I think, it's more of kind of a gamification approach that sets people up for rewards and doing the right thing and learning skills.
I mean, so speaking of gamification, I've often thought about with my grad students, can I World of Warcraft incremental success tokens, or can I gamify graduate school? Like, second to top, qualified exam. Can I milestone it? Oh no.
But I think I mean, for academics, that's kind of the publications for us. Those are the badges, I guess, for gamification. You expand your Vita. I'm not going to do that same thing again.
Take your time. I mean, it's one thing to like perceive it that way, but there's something like, you know, the endorphins released when you hit a jackpot. Right? There's
Yeah.
If you have a formalized reward system rather than the reward of the activity itself, there has to be some value. Nice. You know, you got to do it again.
And again.
Oh, and that's back.
This must be thrilling to watch. Me make the same mistake over and over again.
Oh, Scuzzbot, I'll get back to your... I have a few lists of questions here, but Scuzzbot wants to know, have there been any studies on the potential negative effects of gamification?
Negative effects, I mean, I think in terms of gamification, I mean, people are a bit worried where if you kind of have these rewards centers, oh, come on, too much, are you going to create an addiction for people? Are they going to be so motivated that they're going to be addicted to whatever rewards that they are going to... I'm not sure how big of a concern that is, but people have talked about that. Come on.
Can I gamify finite algebra? Find a way. Sell it. You know, what you do is you advertise that it increases your algebra learning. Oh, wow, a shortcut.
Oh.
Free life to add to your infinite lives.
Can I get away from this part? Oh, no, I'm just...
Oh, wait, is that a shortcut?
I don't know if that's a shortcut.
Yeah, you want to go right, I think, yeah. Finite algebra, the game. Sounds enthralling. With that said, I'd like to see somebody try. Loot boxes are the devil and don't need to study, you know? I'm sure I would like one. Yes. Scuzzbot's follow-up on that. Not just possible addiction, but people circumventing intent to attain rewards. I mean, finding the loopholes, cheating. I mean, that's what most of us do in our jobs anyway, right? We try to find the easiest way to perform tasks without committing too much time and effort. Maybe that's the way to do it. Get up on it and walk off. Nice.
That would have been bad.
Finding loopholes is what modern society is all about. I'd say that's evolution in general, right? Most of evolution is just finding a slight energetic configuration to make life easier, and then you can reproduce more. You're healthier, successful, so on and so forth. Reese's Pieces, this was a comment before we put in God mode. Dying over and over on the same level is very reminiscent of hitting a roadblock in research. You confirm or deny that claim?
No, I mean, I think that's very accurate. But I mean, really in research, it's all about how you look at it. I mean, the study might not turn out the way that you hoped, but I mean, that's not a roadblock. It's just, it gets you the answer. It may not be the answer that you wanted, but...
Yeah. So there are better ways to do things, but there's also fraud/lying. Yeah. Drawing the line between those. In some professions, you're rewarded for all of it, right? Elon Musk even said he doesn't hire the smartest engineer, he hires the laziest because they will find the shortest path to the result. I don't actually believe he does that. There's a threshold of laziness that is beyond productive, but I get the sentiment, right? You want to find the person that's going to find the loophole to save time and effort and do things faster. That makes sense. All right, 8:48. We can probably do another prediction.
Okay.
Do you want to pause and pick one of these?
Okay. How about the, let's see, memorizing spoken.
That's a fun one. Okay. All right, get ready with your standard internet units. We're going to throw another prediction up there right now.
I actually taught about that in class today. That was my lecture
That's
for
awesome.
today. Yeah.
That's an undergrad class or graduate class?
Graduate class, yeah.
All right. Yeah, you can go ahead and keep playing and all. All right, so if you're not following, click follow, get your 300 standard internet units that you can bet on questions and earn money that's meaningless outside of the stream. But in this stream, you can request a factoid, you can make us take a drink, you can highlight your message, so be it. So here's the question we just popped up. It's a prediction. What is the world record for memorizing spoken random digits? And so this is two people sitting together. One person says one random digit after another, and the other person tells those back. And the question is, what is the world record for the most that has ever been done? Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Is it less than 400 digits or greater than 400 digits? Was somebody able to list back greater than 400 randomly picked numbers in a row from hearing them? Oh, that's the bonus level. I forgot about that.
See, if the level doesn't have lava or crushing things, I'm actually pretty good.
All right, so again, the question is, there's a world record for memorizing digits. Anyone can choose to compete for this world record. The question is, what is the current world record of spoken digits memorized? Is it less than 400 or greater than 400? 400 is a lot of digits. Like that. So this is presumably a practice skill.
Yes.
Okay, so this is something that can be learned. I'm sure there's savants of some kind that are just good at memorizing digits, but imagine. All right, you have about 30 seconds. Throw your guesses in there. What's the world record for memorizing random spoken digits? Is it less than 400 digits or greater than 400 digits? Again, you're all on the Ask a Scientist honor code here. Don't look up the answer. The SEGA Genesis really struggles with rotational motion. I didn't notice. Is it rotational motion of the screen? Maybe? I don't know. Have you used some memory devices? Yeah. Makes sense. All right. So, Wally, what's the answer? Greater than 400 or less than 400?
It's digits? 456, I believe.
456 digits. So somebody sat there, looked another person in the eyes and said 456 numbers in a row. Presumably they said more than 456.
No, I mean, you kind of read, the way that you typically test this is that you might read 10 numbers. The person gets 10 numbers right, then you go to 11, then you go up from there to get what's called their kind of digit span. Typically, in most people, this is between 5 and 9 digits for most normal kind of people. Yeah, for people who practice a lot, they can exceed that by hundreds of digits. So it's a really interesting skill that is trainable. One of the first early cases, I believe it was 78. This was one of the first reported cases in the scientific literature, where this guy, his initials were SF. That's how he's known in the literature, SF. Just undergraduate at a university, and a researcher came up to him, Anders Ericsson, and said, "Hey, we want to do this study, and we want to see if you can memorize these digits." And at first, he was like, "No way! There's no way I can do that." His maximum was, I think he kind of maxed out at 78, which is still impressive.
Yeah.
The way that people are able to do this is that they build these very complicated strategies for how to kind of remember these things. And SF was a long distance or a track and field runner, so he would encode these as running times. So if you had a 4-digit running time, so let's say 4 minutes 32.9, he would record that as kind of a really good mile. If that was a running, if you did like a 4-minute mile, and then he would say, well, that was slower and then take the next 4 digits and put that as another running time. And he was able to string these things together in meaningful kind of sequences, so that he would be able to listen to random 1 digit at a time for 1 digit per second, 78, and repeat that back perfectly. It's it's extremely unlikely that anyone is born with the kind of memory capability to do this. But with practice and kind of dedication, really anybody can do this.
To some extent, presumably, right? I mean, this is something I talked about with Sarah Hart, is the nature versus nurture, right? And her backhand answer is about 50-50. So like, presumably, just like in the NBA, if you're over 7 feet tall, there's a 50% chance you're in the NBA. Even memorizing digits, there's some kind of inherent.
I think motivation is kind of a big limiter. If you just don't have the motivation, because to do this, it's aversive. I mean, nobody likes to engage in that type of practice because it's hard. You fail a lot, there are some kind of views of expertise that say that really that's the way that expertise works. It's really more about practice than anything else.
What? Nothing?
Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do down there.
Weird level divine. Bitter Dan, mnemonic device? Does mnemonic devices work for numbers?
Yeah, I think some people, when we did this in one of our studies, we did kind of a neuroimaging study. We tried to see can we capture the changes in the brain that happen while someone becomes an expert in kind of memorizing digits. And we didn't have enough time to get this person up to we didn't have the time to get this person up to like 78 or 100 or 400. So we were able to get this person with just a few months up to a digit span of 18, which is still super impressive. I knew that was going to be there. And basically what they did was that they kind of wrote little stories in their heads about the numbers and how they interacted and what they were doing. So that was kind of the strategy. And if they if they rhymed, for example, with certain kind of names or things, that would be how she did her kind of 18. Different stories or mnemonic devices or strategies like that really make a difference. And you could do this yourself. You could easily kind of expand your digit span by a couple of items just by coming up with some kind of mnemonic device or stringing digits together that are kind of meaningful in some way. So, any random string of digits, you're likely to get some meaningful things. And if you can encode that, so if you get 1492 as kind of a string of digits, you can just encode that as one item. That's the way kind of memory works. It's in chunks. So if you chunk those things together, essentially, rather than take up one spot in working memory or short-term memory, or the 4 spots, it takes up one spot. So it's kind of really simple principles that when you kind of get enough practice, people can do amazing things.
And so that's the way you guys talk about it in terms of items and how they're grouped into like singular objects and how many of those objects you can hold.
Yeah. So, I think you could think about this as a digit span of kind of, typically we think about 7 plus or minus 2, kind of 5 to 9. But if you can group things meaningfully, then it's 7 plus or minus 2 groups or chunks of information. So it seems like memory in that case isn't based on a specific number of items, but number of chunks.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Fun factoid from Bitter Dan. Speaking of numbers, the letter B in numbers doesn't come up until 1 billion.
Huh.
That is tying alphabet and numbers together. Well done.
Yeah.
That is a fun factoid.
And one thing that's interesting about the individuals who might have really great digit spans is that they have practiced very, very specific strategies for how to be good at that. But then you can change the digits to letters, and then performance falls back to 0, or back to normal. So it goes back to kind of 7 plus or minus 2, in that expertise really in many ways is maximal adaptation to the constraints of a specific task. And if you change that task to something that someone's not adapted to, then you might have people go back to kind of unexceptional levels of performance. Oh, I remember this.
That is insane. So they could be the best in the world at doing it with numbers.
Yeah.
And they just amateur all of a sudden when you put letters in there. And I guess it goes back to what you said about practicing the actual functional skill you're going to be executing.
And when you think about things like, I mean, this world record has been broken many times, but I mean, at one point, the world record for memorizing digits of pi was 31,000 or something like that. And I mean, it's a very specific skill. You don't have someone who memorizes 31,000 kind of digits of pi. Probably doesn't have a generally good memory overall. They've just tried really, really hard and have developed very, very specific strategies for this one number.
Wow. How long does it take to say that many digits of pi?
It takes a long time. And that I mean, I think that record has been kind of broken several times over at this point. So, yeah, I mean, just to say that number, it's just going to take hours.
Yeah. Someone to double check it, and that's amazing.
And that record gets broken all the time.
I mean, so are you under the position that anyone could do that if they wanted to, or is there some biological predisposition that might make some better at that than others?
I mean, I think practice and kind of specific types of practice probably account for the large majority of variance in terms of expert performance. That really experts are people who have really just practice and develop skills and develop strategies. I mean, you think about some of the crazy things. I mean, I think the world record for juggling, I mean, at some point, it's like 9 balls at the same time for, oh no, am I gonna drown?
Oh yeah, I don't know if you're gonna drown. Does God mode apply to drowning?
I just don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Get the bubbles.
Oh, that's the... Okay.
No, you can drown. God mode does not prevent drowning.
Yeah.
That music, that's stressful. We should put that at the end of our exams.
Yeah.
Of course, our students wouldn't recognize it at all, but it is a good...
I just didn't even know that was an option in this game yet.
Escalating beat sequence. Today I learned gods can drown. It depends. Is what we actually learned. All right, Phoenix Fire. Sorry I missed it 9 minutes ago. Thank you for the follow. Enjoy your standard internet units. It's a pleasure to have you here. If you have any questions for Professor Walter Booth, throw them in chat. He's an expert at cognitive psychology, learning via video games, and video games, how they can access training and prevent things like dementia or communication among older individuals. But yeah, throw your questions in chat right now if you have them. There's an unofficial record in Japan in 2006 of 111,700 digits of pi. It took 16 hours to recite.
That's dedication.
That's something. It's one of those things I don't want to judge anyone for that chooses to do that.
Yeah.
Because especially if you're the best in the world at it. Like there's a certain amount of inherent respect that you have to give that. And I've learned not to judge because I speed run video games for fun. Just run them as fast as I can. Exactly, says the guy that speed runs NARC. Yes, you are exactly right. But man, that is a lot of digits of pi. Hey, I want to know more about this person, like what that translates to. Is it absolutely insane? Imagine putting that on your resume. I mean, that's the thing though. Like, if you see that, how do you not bring that guy in for an interview, right? Like, just to even ask them about it. So, presumably, some doors have opened for being the world's best pi reciter. Memorize the digits, the golden ratio. Yeah, pick any non-terminating number, and you can do it, I guess. All right, we just crossed the 9 o'clock mark. If anyone has questions for Walter Booth, throw them in chat right now. We're talking cognition, learning as applied to video games and related to video games, as well as how it impacts the elderly and training via video games. If you have any of those questions, feel free to throw them in chat. But also 9 o'clock. Are you sick of this game? Or do you want to beat
let's try maybe something.
All right, what do you want to go with?
I'm not making much progress. Let's try Tekken, maybe.
Let's go with Tekken. This is the original Tekken. time for some fighting. All right, so we're jumping forward in time to PlayStation 1. Tekken, when did that one come out? Tetris. Don Carr played Tetris.
Okay, no, yeah.
So Tekken was 1994 for the PlayStation.
Oh, wrong controller.
Yep, yeah. So I apologize to any video game purists. We're using an Xbox controller to play PlayStation on a computer. So yeah, we do our best as we go along. All right, while I wait for some people to throw some questions in there, I have one of my favorite questions. I ask this of every guest. It's my personal favorite. In addition to playing video games, I watch a lot of movies. So what movie or TV show gets your discipline right, and which ones get it wrong?
I thought about this, and there really are no movies or TV shows about cognitive psychologists. I mean, there's some good kind of movies and TV shows that might involve cognitive psychology. I think one of my favorite cognitive psychology movies is kind of an older Christopher Nolan movie, Memento, that's all about memory, interrograde amnesia, and it's actually based on kind of a real kind of condition and real person named HM. Who just couldn't form new memories. I mean, oops, did I want to pick that person? Oh, I guess
we can restart if you want.
I'm sure I'll lose soon enough.
Man, we should do. We'll give you one round to warm up, and the next one we'll do a prediction about. What about war games? Semi-related. It's Matthew Broderick, the 1980s. It's a little bit of game theory.
Yeah.
Psychology and chess versus tic-tac-toe, nuclear games. That's fun. But I'm going to say unfortunately your answer was incorrect. The answer for the one that got it wrong is Lawnmower Man.
Oh,
do you remember Lawnmower Man?
I have a vague recollection of it.
Yeah, so those of you not familiar, it was an early 90s. It's based on a Stephen King story, actually. It was an early 90s movie starring Pierce Brosnan, where he basically took a mentally disabled person, put them in VR goggles, and pumped knowledge into their brain via, it wasn't necessarily gaming, but it was like flashing imagery into them. It was like Johnny Mnemonic type thing. Presumably that got it wrong. And eventually he uploaded himself to a computer because he became so brilliant. Spoilers for a 30-year-old movie. I apologize anyone that's upset by that.
Okay.
Oh wow, Bitter Dan's friend's dad developed Tetris. Tetris is a really old game. I think it was originally Russian, and then it got ported to the Nintendo. War games. So I mean, is there any ones that get it wrong? I guess they don't, or aspects of it wrong.
Round one.
I think, I mean, cognitive psychologists, they kind of ignore us. I think the media ignores us in general. I think when people think about psychology and psychologists, often, I mean, the first thing they think about, or maybe the only thing they think about, is clinical psychology, which is very far from what we do, and probably gets more movies and television shows than us cognitive psychologists.
Yeah, that's one of the... So when we used to do in-person Ask a Scientist, the number one thing whenever our psychologists were there was like, what do you know about schizophrenia and bipolar and multi-personalities? And it's a sexy topic and it's interesting, but it's a very small portion of actual psychology-related research.
Oh, wow.
Bitter Dan,
do something.
Alexei Pajitnova, that is the appropriate name to develop Tetris. All right. Big Spooky Skeleton wants to know, any thoughts on the impact of China limiting online gaming time for minors? This is just a recent rule, right? It's something like less than 3 hours per, not per day, right? It's per week. I don't remember what the actual number was.
Yeah, I think, I mean, there's been a lot of kind of panic over kind of gaming disorders and gaming addiction, and I just don't know. It's just very controversial to say someone, I mean, that we should be limiting. I mean, obviously, just to say that we should be limiting people's behavior in gaming is kind of obviously something that needs to have a serious discussion, because it's I think there are good arguments that that's probably not the best kind of way to go, but the extent to which even gaming addiction exists, I think is controversial. I think the WHO or some organization, health organization, just kind of made a big deal about gaming addiction being something we need to pay attention to, but I'm really not sure. There's just a lot of panic over kind of games being bad for us, but also a lot of maybe overhyping of kind of gaming being good for us. And like I said before, maybe we can just have fun and play video games regardless of kind of what it's doing for us in terms of being good or bad.
And so that fear tactic has existed with every new medium, right? Like kids reading too much books, or kids listening
books,
too much radio, or too much music, or too much TV. And video games, just the next manifestation of that. You have Reese's Pieces, large panic over fiction novels in the 1800s. Because, clearly that's going to damage the kids' brains. And so it's a reactionary response as far as you're concerned right now.
I think, it's kind of a panic. I mean, I think there's a lot of concern often with technology before there's even any good data. So I think there's kind of limits on screen time or maybe constant internet access and kind of technology access to technology is just kind of rotting our brains or causing us to lose our memory or whatever. I really just think, there's often this big panic with technology that is probably overhyped. But yeah, there's a pattern that comes out over and over again. At first it's kind of comic book novels, and then comic books, and then video games, and now maybe VR, or it's just a lot of stuff that's probably overblown.
Yeah, it's fear of the unknown. One of the things I rant to my students about is that they're the 18 to 35 demographic that has the lowest voter turnout.
Yeah.
So they're effectively letting baby boomers decide things like, net neutrality and gaming restrictions, and like all these things they know nothing about. They're making decisions just based on reactionary decisions. And I can't let people enjoy things I don't enjoy. You're absolutely right, Maz. Thank you. If I'm not happy, no one should be happy. I totally agree. Scuzzbot missed yours. Sounds like the equivalent of, "Oh, you're an engineer. Can you fix my computer?" Has anyone asked you to fix them? Is that?
That's, as if you tell someone you're a psychologist, the first thing that they'll ask you is kind of, "Can you help me? Do you know what's wrong with me?" or something like that.
Yeah.
And, it's a completely different field. It's just, I am in no way qualified to kind of help someone with mental health issues. It's a completely different skill set. But I think that points to, the interesting thing about psychology in general is it's such a broad domain with lots of people interested in lots of things. We've got social psychologists who are trying to think about how do we understand relationships. We've got cognitive psychologists trying to figure out how we think. We've got developmental psychologists who are trying to think about how we grow and how we learn. Clinical psychologists thinking about mental health and neuroscience, thinking about how does the brain produce behavior and thoughts and emotions. So it's really kind of, I think, a neat thing about psychology, but also, something that's not really understood by a lot of people.
To think that, like, you're sitting on an airplane and they find out you're a psychologist and they're like, "You got 2 hours to fix me." Like, that's just, even if you were an expert.
I think I took one abnormal psychology class as an undergraduate, and I probably remember nothing about it.
I don't believe you. You have to remember some of those, like, there's a few, like, multi-personality cases and, like, the crazy outlier examples. And metal pipe through the brain.
Oh, yeah, Phineas Gage. You got one. Phineas
there
Gage,
we go.
Yeah. I do remember that.
Yeah. No, I remember that from high school psychology.
Yeah.
Like, there was just some profound, experiments that weren't intentional, but we know things about them anyway.
Before you had neuroimaging and the ability to kind of image the brain functionally and structurally, that's the best that you could get is kind of hope that you could learn something from someone who's kind of experienced damage to the brain. But now they've got all sorts of imaging types of techniques, and also things like transcranial magnetic stimulation, where you can actually use magnetic pulses to turn off pieces of the brain while someone is kind of conscious and trying to do a task. And if you're interested in what does this piece of the brain do, you just zap it out for a bit of time and see what happens.
Just electronically turn that.
Yeah.
I love those studies, like the magnetic field, electric field effects on the brain. So I went on a rant today in general chemistry. So I'm teaching the freshman chemistry course, and there's a chapter about crystals, or a portion of a chapter about crystals, and I go about a rant about the synthetic versus natural diamonds and stuff. The one I went on today was about healing crystals, like these crystals you lay on the body and somehow they heal you. And the thing is, if something's gonna affect you, it has to interact with the atoms inside your body.
Yeah.
And so it has to do that through some electric field, some magnetic field, photons, beta particles. Something has to be hitting you on the inside. But that's a fascinating area, because you don't have to open the brain to affect the brain, right? That's the holy grail of manipulating thoughts. Bell's Express. Shout out for choice in Tekken. Yes. Because you need to have a robot fighting I don't know who that is, on a baseball field. Tekken is your choice of game. All right. Reese's Pieces has follow-up as a mathematician. Oh, you're a mathematician? What is that? 425,603,562,359 plus 5,346,508,298. Whew. All right. I gotta have them. Healing crystals, yeah. I mean, placebo effect is a very powerful like there's no question about that. So how do you control for placebo? And I mean, do you see that in your learning studies?
It's really, really hard. So I think psychologists have it much harder than kind of people who are doing medical research, in that if you're doing a medical intervention, you can give one group a pill that has the medicine, and another group a pill that has the placebo, it's just sugar.
Yeah.
And people just don't know what they're getting. But when you're doing a video game training study, for example, you can't give them the intervention without them knowing what it is.
Yeah.
So behavioral interventions are really, really hard to control for placebo effects. And we've shown this in some of our research, looking at people. I mean, basically, you have to control for people's expectations based on what they see of what they're getting. And you can't give someone like a Tetris intervention and not have it be pretty obvious that you're trying to look for effects on spatial abilities and mental rotation and those types of things, that when people see the interventions they're getting, it's almost like they can open the pill and taste what's inside. Is it the sugar or is it the medicine? So placebo effects are really, I think, interesting in cognitive literature. Very, very hard to control for.
Yeah. Counterpoint, when you were like 5 years old and you had a 3-year-old brother or sister and you gave them the controller that didn't work, that's your control study right there. Obviously can't do that on scale, but not actually controlling it. All right, should we make a bet on the next round?
Okay.
So did you win the last one? Or
I've been losing pretty bad.
All right. So the question is, will Wally win the next?
Oh no.
I'll let them see who you pick, but don't start playing yet.
Okay. I'm gonna go back with King. I think I was doing better with King.
All right. So this is a non-science related prediction. Wally, when was the last time you played this? It's more recent than Sonic.
It must be 20 years at least.
20 years.
30 years.
We have King versus Paul. You are the leopard face. Press pause.
Okay.
All right. We're going to do 2-minute prediction. Do you have faith in Wally winning this match? 2 for no immediately. All right. Do you want another drink?
Sure. I can go for another one of these, yeah. I already got the guy down, so have some faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You find out how the internet feels about you via betting on a video game. All right, so the question is, will Wally win the next fight? We have about 1 minute and 30 seconds. Use your standard internet units. If you're not following us, click the follow button, get your 300 free points that you can spend on nothing except requesting a factoid or asking us to drink. Both are acceptable. Both we're excited about, so you might as well get those points and use them accordingly. All right. So, Bitter Dan, you guys have about 45 seconds. Make your prediction about whether Wally will win this next battle in Tekken. So we're talking best of 3, not just one round.
Okay.
Right? I think that's the fairest way to do it.
Sure.
Like, let's get 2 or 3 data points before we make a decision on this. All right, so Bitter Dan listed a factoid regarding Tetris from Wikipedia. When playing Tetris, brain function and activity increases along with greater cerebral energy consumption measured by glucose metabolic rate. As Tetris players become more proficient, their brains show a reduced consumption of glucose, indicating more efficient brain activity for this task.
Yeah, no, I think we've done some studies with different video games doing a variety of neuroimaging techniques, EEG and fMRI, and yeah, I mean, I think as people get more proficient in video games, the circuits that they're using to play are changing, and really a lot of the games you do see that they can be better at the game while using less energy, essentially, or using less kind of brain power, that they're able to kind of automate certain tasks within the game, and the pattern of activation that you see at the end of training is very, very different from what you see when people are first beginning to learn a skill.
I mean, so that's interesting. So for both brain training as well as, athletic and dexterous things, it's just energetic efficiency increases over time, right? It's just you get better at harnessing energy and utilizing that for your goal.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I don't know if it's not really specific to kind of brain training or Tetris or video games, but that's just generally how things go when you learn to do things well. That you see these kind of more efficient networks come online to help you do the task.
Mm-hmm. All right, we have a prediction. Do you want to know?
I do want to know.
All right, we have 2 yeses and 4 nos, but the people that said yes bet 10 times as much.
Okay.
So I think they're optimistic.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Oh, you shouldn't have put your faith in me.
Fine. You're doing fine.
It's just best 2 out of 3, right?
Yep, exactly. Ooh, skeptics.
It was a mistake.
No, we'll see. The payout's looking pretty promising here. What I love about this, I'll wait for you to demo. Oh, you pulled a move off there. That's fun. Oh, look at that. We're going flawless victory.
Oh, you jinxed it.
I caused that.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. All right, ladies and gentlemen. It's a 1-to-1, best out of 3. Best out of 3. It comes down to this. Skeptics, come on. The tensions are high, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, congratulations. This feels satisfying, doesn't it?
Yes.
All right. Will Wally win the next fight? The answer is yes. Congratulations, believers. You took the win on that one. Reese's Pieces always believes that it's probably a mistake in Ask the Scientist Gaming, but it paid off this time. Congratulations. I'm Dark. I'm sorry about the frowny face. Don't worry, we'll have science predictions following up. With that said, the people that lost didn't bet a whole lot. They would have won an 11-to-1 payout.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I think it was worth it. Even if you thought he was going to win, it was probably worth it for your internet. So I had to bet against the risk reward was too high. Exactly. No, this is a meta-analysis of predictions on Twitch. All right, so anyone just joining us, my guest today is Dr. Wally Boot. He's an expert in cognitive psychology, and particularly learning and using technology to increase learning or improve learning or understanding learning. Particularly experience related to video games, which is appropriate. In fact, you're the most appropriate guest we've ever had on Ask Scientist Gaming.
And I'm number 19.
Yeah, exactly. So it goes. But yeah, it's awesome to have you on because this is a unique crossing of expertise in science and video gaming. With that said, you don't consider yourself a video gamer.
No, I mean, I play a little bit of VR stuff like Beat Saber. I was obsessed in graduate school with a game called Dance Dance Revolution. I was very good at that. But otherwise, I'm not much of a gamer myself.
Does Dance Dance Revolution make you better at dancing?
It
rhythm, right?
Probably makes you worse. I mean, if you were to look at someone on the dance floor doing Dance Dance Revolution kind of moves, it probably looks very weird.
Yeah, but the rhythm training has to be pretty solid.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy when you have kind of things to line up on the screen and do things at certain times. When you don't have that, maybe it's not going to be.
I see.
Yeah.
So you're training like visual, rather than audio. Yeah. So that harkens back to the what skill are you training and actually practicing. So if you ever go to a club and they have a visual representation of music, you have a shot. Does Guitar Hero make you a better musician?
I had a honors thesis student who actually did that study, Dustin Souders, as his he was an undergraduate honors thesis student, and he got Guitar Hero experts versus non-Guitar Hero experts, people who've never played the game, and had them do a variety of musical tasks. And no, the people who are experts didn't really excel on any of the musical tasks.
Round one.
So Guitar Hero is like 5 buttons plus the strumming exercise.
I think so,
There's manifestations of that are actual like guitars, right? 5 strings plus frets.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, and they have like piano versions of it as well as drums. And I guess the closer you can get to reality.
Yeah.
But again, as long as the sheet music is visual bars going down a screen crossing the line, you're presumably set. Tropical cyclone. I feel cheated this isn't a Beat Saber stream right now. It is something we actually talked about, I mean, briefly. I think we could accommodate it. Maybe next time we have you on.
Yeah.
It's going to be a shot of you in the corner with VR goggles on, swinging your arms around. But the crowd wants it, so I mean, we have to acquiesce.
Yeah, we're starting to move more and more into VR research in the laboratory now too. As we've done some kind of initial usability studies with older adults in VR, trying to understand kind of potential barriers to using VR to support leisure activities and support training and all these types of things. So we've done some initial VR studies in our laboratory. Oh, come on.
I mean, so what's limiting VR technology? It's still not the breakthrough dominant video gaming as it would be if it was the optimized vision of what VR could be.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not. I mean, VR is better than it's ever been before, but still, I mean, when we think about technology, if I can get kind of back into kind of a science mode for a second.
Yeah.
When we think, I mean, we do a lot of studies on technology adoption, and there are really well-known models of technology acceptance and adoption. And when it basically comes down to it, the two things that determine whether or not someone adopts a piece of technology are perceived ease of use and perceived usefulness. Do I think it's going to be kind of easy to use, and do I think it's going to help me accomplish tasks and my goals? And then in video gaming, I guess your goal would be to have fun. And I don't know why VR technology hasn't really caught on to extent where it's kind of a common gaming platform at this point.
I mean, it's getting close.
It's getting close, yeah.
I mean, I know there's some issues with like motion sickness and latency and signal processing. Reese's Pieces has the most important question of the night. Why is Jack so top heavy?
I don't know.
I'm assuming he skipped every leg down is the answer.
He is very oddly proportioned.
I'm Dark has an answer for VR, and the answer is I'm much too lazy to actually move around during video games.
Yeah.
I mean, so Xbox tried a version of that with the Kinect, and so Nintendo has done the same with the motion capture stuff, but it doesn't live up to the hype. It doesn't live up to what people want it to be. The consensus is they're too lazy to actually move around during video games. I mean, with that said, if you had a really like fun Mario Kart version of like exercising, running on a treadmill, or riding a bike where you could shoot things, I mean, I could see that taking off if someone made a really fun version of it. Who knows? All right. So one of our other go-to questions that we typically ask here is, if you had unlimited resources and no moral qualm, what experiment would you do? And so to give you some context on this, you get to think big. Like Sarah Hard wants to do twin studies, actually creating twins and then separating them. So
if that's an acceptable answer.
Oh, yeah. Well, here's the other one. Matt Hauer said he wants to put ankle bracelets on people and throw a hurricane at a city.
Oh,
so, yeah.
Okay. If those are acceptable answers, I was worried about my answer.
No.
But
dream big, shoot for the stars.
But so I mean, there's the idea that as we were talking about expertise, that expertise is really determined by the amount of practice and the types of practice that people engage in. And could anyone become an expert in any domain?
Mm-hmm.
So could you just take any random person off the street and make them a chess grandmaster if they were to accumulate the right number of hours of practice and the right types of practice activities? So, I mean, the unethical experiment would be kind of to literally force someone to engage in these activities to see, is it really true that anybody become an expert in anything? So that would be the unethical experiment.
So you're talking about somebody that doesn't want to get good at it?
Yeah.
I am sure that study is done constantly on children of overbearing parents.
Yeah, true.
Like the violinists and the athletes and the...
But yeah, I mean, psychology is known for really questionably ethical studies in general. So like, you think about Milgram's experiment where he made people think that they were shocking people to death and then letting them do it. And then coming out of that study knowing that you're the type of person who, if someone in a white lab coat told you to do it, you would engage in murder. It's like, well, that's really questionably ethical in terms of ethics. And you have things like locking undergraduates in the basement to understand kind of power structures and Zimbardo's kind of prison experiments. So
the prison Reese's Pieces. I didn't choose chess life. The chess life. Wasn't there a psychologist? He trained his two daughters to become chess masters. I'm trying to remember that story. Anyway, Scuzzbot Wotus has redeemed Take a Drink. So, Wally, cheers. Congratulations on your victory in Tekken, winning internet points for the audience. Yeah, the Stanford prison experiment, which has been partially debunked, right? It's brought into question.
Yeah, I mean, it's unclear. I mean, how much people were just playing along to play along versus how much people were kind of adopting these roles. And I mean, in terms of things like what we call in psychology kind of demand characteristics of cues about the experiment that let the participants know how the experimenter wants them to behave and expects them to behave. Mm-hmm. I mean, people kind of knew, I think, going to that experiment that they were testing to see kind of what kind of crazy things people would do, so they kind of acted accordingly.
Yeah. Self-fulfilling.
You win. Round 2. Fight.
Is Michelle a cliche Native American?
That's unfortunate, yes. There are things that you forget after 30 years.
No, we apologize. Some of these games haven't aged as well as they might have wanted them to. You ever play Mike Tyson's Punch-Out?
Yes, I did, yeah.
That one didn't age well either. Yeah, we learned that during Mike Roper's stream.
Yeah.
So, we apologize to anyone. Yeah, this is Tekken 1990, what do we say, 96 or something like that? All right, we did our Take a Drink. All right, anyone just joining us? My guest today is Dr. Wally Boot. He's an expert in cognitive psychology and learning via video games and technology and how that influences things like aging and late life cognition and abilities. So if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in chat, and we're happy to answer them. We're also playing Tekken right. So it's 9:34. Let me know if you want to change games at all. Still have 3 left.
Okay, sure. Let's try the other fighting game. I think that was better. I was so much better at the other fighting game, the vampire one.
Yep. Vampire Savior. So this was originally known as Deathstalker. So it's going to be that controller.
This is another game I played in. Well, the version I played, I think, was in college, but this might be kind of a precursor to that.
I suppose I should change the stream title to the game we're actually playing. Alright, so it's Deathstalker 3, but it was also released as Vampire Savior. And that's the one we're playing on the Sega Saturn. Made by Capcom.
Yeah, Capcom made some really good fighting games.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the one. There was it was one of the early superhero fighting games. It was like the X-Men game. That was the arcade, the 4-station. That's a really classic one. I think they might have that one. Did you ever go to Fire Bottom Betty's, the barcade?
Yeah. It's really good with this character.
It's like our version of this game is cut off. Move that over a little bit so we can actually get it on screen. There we go. Sorry about that. So I've never seen this game. I know nothing about it. Is there any backstory behind these characters? Or
I don't
just
know.
Another weird,
it's just a game that we were kind of obsessed with in college, and that's all I know about it.
No worries. So there's a Deathstalker is good. Yeah, there's apparently 5 or 6 Deathstalker games. So this is the 3rd one, and there were follow-ups, the Vampire Savior 2 and 3. And
it was based on some anime or something. I just don't know.
yeah, that was fun. I love having guests on because I try all the games before they come on just to make sure they work, so I get a nice experience. But yeah, this one was a first for me. So presumably there's like a special skill bar at the bottom that gets high enough you can do something. All right, we got a bunch of predictions to go through.
Okay.
So after this round, we should hammer out a few more of these guys. 1, 2, 3. So yeah, one of these here. We'll save this one for NARC.
Okay. So let's go with the processing speed one.
All right. All right, so those of you get ready to spend your standard internet units. It is time to do another prediction. All right, so we're going to give 2 minutes. Again, this is Ask a Scientist academic honor policy here. Don't look up the answer. Try to make the prediction the best you can. Prediction is up right now, so our mental abilities decline with age. The question is, when does that decline really start? Is it less than 30 years old or greater than 30 years old? And so again, that decline is inherent, presumably, right? And over time, mental abilities will decline. The question is, does it start before you're 30 or after you're 30 years old? Is there any back information you want to give on this without giving away the answer?
So, I mean, I think different cognitive abilities may change at different rates, and yeah, so
there's some disclaimer involved.
yeah,
in this.
yeah.
All right, so you have about... My decline started in 10th grade when it started getting high.
Oh, no.
Oh, man. Are we assuming no drug and alcohol use is involved in this? This is just inherent.
No, yeah, well, I mean...
It's fair game. It's just... That was an amazing move. Was that you or that was
No, that
them?
was them, yeah. I guess they
Wow.
reached through some portal. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, they're busting the special moves here. My decline started in 10th grade. I mean, at least you can pinpoint the date. That's got to be worth something, right? All right, you guys have about 30 seconds. When does processing speed decline. So we're talking in particular about your ability to process information quickly. Is it less than 30 years old or greater than 30 years old? Put your answers in right now. If you're not following, click the follow button, get your 300 standard internet units, and bet them on our not arbitrary, but our predictions to win arbitrary points that aren't necessarily useful. All right. We should have Dr. Boot play Cuphead. Have you seen Cuphead?
I'm aware of what Cuphead is, but I don't know if I've ever... Other than the awareness that exists, I don't know if I can tell you much more about it.
I mean, it's a classic 2D side scroller that's it's very beautiful and apparently really hard. I've never actually played it, but I've watched people play it. Very pretty game.
Pretty good at this game.
All right. So, Wally, when does the information processing speed decline? Less than 30 years old or greater than 30 years old?
So less than 30. So you start seeing processing speed declines in the 20s and 30s. Which, I mean, processing speed refers to the speed with which you're able to kind of complete basic mental processes. And that's one of the earliest things that you see decline. A lot of cognitive abilities are either increasing or actually stable or increasing around that time. That was a very weird move. Yeah, it's one of the earliest ones where we begin to slow down in our 20s and 30s, and you can see this pretty clearly. But I mean, the good news, I think, in general is that even though as we age, our processing speed declines, as we age, we also know a whole lot more about the world. So we're able to anticipate the future. So processing speed and the speed with which we react and process information becomes less important. So, I mean, we think about a driver. Older drivers are generally very, very safe drivers. Someone in their kind of 60s or 70s. Generally, I mean, there's kind of a stereotype that older drivers are bad drivers. But even though the processing speed of an older person is lower than young, they know more about the road. They know more about kind of the rules. They know how to anticipate different threats that may appear on the road. They generally wear seatbelts more than younger people. They generally don't drive impaired. So even though cognitive abilities tend to decline with age, and some really kind of early in life, we're able to compensate for those by just knowing more.
Yeah. So that's I mean, it's planning, compensating for response time. That's really interesting. And so the answer is cognitive abilities start to decline in the 30s. I mean, is that across the board, or is that?
That's almost specific, kind of exclusive to processing speed.
Okay.
Where things like memory and dual tasking ability and verbal ability, they're typically still kind of either increasing or stable at that point. Which I think is really interesting. I mean, it's really interesting that we have these different kind of perceptual and cognitive abilities that change at different rates as we age.
All right. Environment. Sorry, just trying to catch up on some questions here. Why is Jack so top heavy? We answered that one. I mean, so the processing speed starts to decline in the 30s. When you look at like professional video gamers, most of them are in their early 20s or even teens. I mean, that's a manifestation of this? That's just the way it's going to be?
So, I mean, I think that's kind of another case where probably expertise and experience can offset for a lot. I mean, if you think about kind of expert athletes, for example, I mean, what they're able to do in terms of anticipating and strategy, I mean, they have strategies and they're able to anticipate future states of the game, which bypasses the need to have fast response times, because if you can know what's going to happen before it happens, and we talked about this in class today about there's this study of expert badminton players where when you can show them a picture of someone serving, and when the shuttlecock, even before it hits the racket, an expert will be able to tell 100 milliseconds before that happens where the kind of shuttlecock is going to land. So by knowing, kind of anticipating what's going to happen in the future, then reaction time and processing speed becomes a whole lot less important. And I imagine that there are similar effects going on in terms of video games as well. Yeah, you're right that, I mean, most kind of professional video game players are not in their 30s or 40s or 50s. There's actually an older adult competitive video game team
I've seen
called
that, the Call of Duty.
The Silver. What are they called?
I don't remember their names, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
But there's kind of a competitive game or kind of group that's all kind of 60 and older.
Not a bad way to spend your retirement. Just video gaming, and I don't know how good they are, but they definitely go to the tournaments. And they play, and they're popular. I think they stream too. Actually. They show their gameplay on stream.
Silver Snipers, that's what they're called. Sorry,
Snipers,
it took me a while to get that, but yeah, I mean, I think they kind of formed that as kind of a hobby and something kind of new to do, and they just started doing it, and maybe they're not the best, but they're having a lot of fun. They don't win tournaments, but they're kind of really enjoying the experience.
Yeah. And you have the time and you have the money to go. And like, nothing wrong with that. Like, I'd love to go to a GDQ. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Games Done Quick. It's the speedrunning community that raises money for cancer. Like, I would love to go just to be there.
Yeah.
Because we can. It won't be competitive, but so it goes.
So this level is called Fetus of God, which is very odd. Oh my goodness, and it's there. How did they come up with
it? Was not just a clever name.
No.
It was an accurate description.
Goodness.
All right. Bitter Dan had a follow-up. I'm assuming this is to the decline at 30. Is that physiological or environment?
So I mean, I think it's kind of a normal physiological change that we can kind of expect to experience. I mean, as we age, just the brain changes, and kind of it just is a little bit surprising that processing speed kind of declines that early. I mean, later in life, part of the reason why kind of processing speed declines is that you begin to see kind of a demyelinization of axons. So basically, kind of a neuron has axons, these kind of wires that connect to other neurons, and they're kind of covered and insulated in this thing called myelin, which allows it to conduct pretty quickly. But as we age, that myelin kind of breaks down, and that kind of slows down the speed with which we can process information. But there's a kind of a whole host of changes in terms of the shape of neurons and kind of neurotransmitter kind of production that begin to cause us to decline in cognitive abilities.
And so in terms of the, like, I don't know, taxonomy of cognitive abilities, you have like response time, you have memory, you have, I mean, are there other subcategories that you see sequentially fall down? Response time is the earliest one. Is there?
So, I mean, there's kind of the idea that it's kind of the last in, first out principle, that the things that are latest to develop are kind of the first things. So if you think about a teenager, the last things that kind of begin to, oh no, I'm fighting myself.
Wow. We should probably pause this and do a bet. Huh?
Okay, let me pause that as soon as I'm able to. Okay. Oh no, that's not a good start.
All right, we're gonna do another game-based prediction. Will Wally, this is the best of three again?
Sure.
Win this round. Wait, round or fight? I guess we'll say fight. Best of three. All right.
Okay.
We'll make this one a short one. We'll just do 1 minute. You guys have to make a prediction. So last time, you won. You the believers won that round. This time,
Okay.
will Wally win this fight against himself? It is the mirror fight versus, I don't remember what this character's name is.
John Talbane. This was the one character that I was really, really good at when I was playing.
This is your go-to. All right. Throw your predictions in there now. Again, if you're not following, click the follow button, get your 300 standard internet units. So yeah, our internet points are known as standard internet units, because why not call them something standard? Will Wally win this fight? Seems like you've been doing pretty good so far.
I'm better at this game than Tekken.
Don't let that bias your decision. What's your prediction? Will he win this fight? Best of 3 round versus the same character. Yes or no? They seem pretty optimistic.
Okay.
About 30 seconds. Throw your bets in there right now. The brain shorts out. Maxa Minimus. Presumably that's relating to axons in the myelin sheath. Myelin sheath is just, it's a fatty.
Yeah, it's like the
deposit, right?
fatty
Yeah.
covering of kind of the axons that serves as kind of an insulator.
And so when people get like Parkinson's, that's shorting of that, or is that?
And Parkinson's is kind of a very, very specific to the death. I mean, death of very specific cells that make a very specific neurotransmitter, dopamine, which is really important for kind of movement control. So Parkinson's is less of kind of demyelization and more of kind of death of very specific cells that do something very, very important.
I see. So it's not the crosstalk; it's the signal transmission.
Yeah.
That's the issue. All right, it's time.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So what was the?
3 people said yes, 2 people said no.
Okay.
But the 2 people that said no only bet a very small amount. So I think the overall consensus is they're optimistic.
Oh no.
The pressure's on. You have class tomorrow or on Friday?
Friday is my next class.
I see. So if any of your students are here, they're going to give you a hard time about your gaming or compliment you on it.
Maybe I'm not doing too bad. Yeah. I mean, my Sonic was kind of a disaster, but I'm not doing too bad here. Okay. Oh wow, I didn't know that we had nunchucks.
We're learning something here new. I don't even remember which color you are.
I'm yellow, I
You're the
believe.
yellow one?
Sometimes I get mixed up. Oh. I just don't know where the nunchucks are.
Hadouken. Have you tried the Hadouken? I like it.
Oh, what the heck did I just do?
This is it. Tied 1-1. This is the decider. Oh man, the skeptics get a 55-1 payout if you lose this.
Okay.
Let's throw the match for the payout. Nope. Nice.
Okay.
Wow. Under pressure, choose the outcome. Will Wally win this fight? The answer is yes. Congratulations again. So minor payout for those of you that believe, but still, you take that victory. Spend your internet units wisely. So how many fights to win this game?
I don't know. I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, you're through 5 or 6.
There's some backstory that's going on over here too.
Yeah, we need the lore behind this fighting game.
Maybe I won. I think I won.
Oh, that was it?
I can't do it.
It's the mirror fight, and then that's the end of the game?
I guess that's
That's impressive. So, I'm Dark, bet 69 internet units and got 70. Still a profit. We're going to take that victory.
Yeah, no, that's it. The game is over.
You just beat that game.
Wow. Well, I was on normal mode. It was. I don't think it was on.
I mean, still props. You get the drunk Bowser GG. Congratulations. That's really it.
Oh wow, credits and
roll
everything.
Credits. You might be the first person that legitimately beat a game on Ask a Scientist Gaming. We had no cheat codes in. This was just you fighting. Wow.
Okay, well, let's queue up the next one.
All right, what do you want to do?
I guess we've got.
It's too early for NARC.
Okay, so I guess we'll go with Crash.
Crash Bandicoot? All right. Do you have a Game Shark? No, we're playing on an emulator. I'm actually using the BizHawk emulator, but you can put in the cheat codes. Earthworm Jim. I'm really upset nobody has played Earthworm Jim yet.
I had bad luck with Earthworm Jim. I mean, we had a PlayStation, and for whatever reason, it broke the first time we put Earthworm Jim in the PlayStation, and we always blamed that game for breaking our PlayStation.
So there's a really famous speedrunner named Darbian. He basically picks random games to speedrun, and his latest one is Earthworm Jim. So I've been watching him like whip his head around and helicopter, and it's been really satisfying. 40 minutes. I think the speedrun record was about 30 minutes or so. Tropical Cyclone. Dr. Walter, not a gamer boot, is true pro gamer.
Well, let's see how this goes.
Yeah, we'll see how Crash Bandicoot goes. But again, you're the first to beat a game legitimately, I think. I mean, there's like Justin Kennemer won a baseball game. I don't know, but yeah, Donkey Kong Country. So the games I want to see somebody play, I want to see Earthworm Jim is one of them.
Okay.
Star Fox would be another one.
Yeah.
That's a classic. Zombies Ate My Neighbors. That was it's a really hard game, but with cheat codes, it's kind of fun. But Crash Bandicoot. So this is one of the early 3D platformers.
I think this probably was the first kind of 3D platformer I ever played.
Yeah. Pogo Stuck, Jump King, and Super Monkey Ball. Monkey Ball was really popular.
What have I got?
Yeah, I never played Crash Bandicoot. I probably should have. And the other one, did you ever play Lion King? The original for Sega or Super
I think
Nintendo?
I might have, yeah.
So Disney basically got a cut of the profits, so they said they wanted to make the game really hard to beat, so they
Okay.
would rent it out repeatedly. So they like intentionally made the game unacceptably hard.
Speaking of that, I mean, I think one of my first games must have been E.T. Do you remember?
For the Atari,
Yeah.
yes, the one that almost crashed Atari. Yeah. There's a documentary recently about trying to find the
The
graveyard.
buried ones,
Yeah,
yeah.
did you see that?
No.
It's not very interesting. The answer is they didn't find it. Spoilers.
What was the one? You had to swing from the vines and you had to jump on the alligator pitfall.
Yeah.
I remember that one too.
Yeah. I think we'll have a pitfall guess, because what's fun about these games is like we played the originals, but there's like 10 versions of Pitfall now.
Yeah.
Like all the subsequent generations. We can do a Pitfall marathon. All right, back to the sciences.
Okay.
I'm dark. I'm sorry I missed this one. At what age is the largest decline shown in terms of cognitive abilities?
It's really complicated. So I mean, I think there are different kind of answers depending on how you measure kind of cognitive change. So I mean, one way to measure cognitive change is to test people over and over and over again over time to see how cognitive abilities have changed. The problem there is that you get these huge retest effects that taking a test multiple times makes you better at that test. In that sense, it doesn't seem like cognitive abilities really decline until really much later in life, like in your 60s or 70s. The other way to measure this is to measure people cross-sectionally. So compare a whole bunch of 20-year-olds and a 30-year-old, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds. There, the kind of declines are much more pronounced because you don't get these practice effects. But it's still unclear which is the better way to go, because if you're comparing people in their 20s to people in their 70s, they grew up in very different environments, very different generations, very different nutrition and education. So it is a much harder job to quantify cognitive change than it might first seem to be. But I mean, if you want to go kind of longitudinally, oftentimes you don't really see the big changes until 60s and 70s and 80s. Like many things with human behavior, it's complicated.
Right. Apologize for missing that answer, but I will see
Okay.
it on the video. Mance wants to know, is Battletoads harder? Ooh, discussing.
I just don't know what to do here. I want that thing. I know I shouldn't get it.
Oh, you rolled into it and it explodes?
The TNT, yeah, will kind of blow me up, so I'm gonna just skip that for now.
Very nice. All right, just out of my curiosity, what was the short answer for largest decline?
So, I mean, in terms of the decades, I was interpreting that as kind of what time. I mean, typically when you get to 60s, 70s, 80s, that's when you begin to see kind of large declines, although it's very, very complicated depending on how you measure things. Oh, no.
Wait, is that, it just did a 2D platformer that lets you fall off the edges?
Yes.
What the hell? That's interesting. All right, Ja, thank you for the follow. Apologize for missing that earlier. Enjoy your standard internet units. We'll bet that on a bunch of predictions sometime soon. In fact, we're running out of time, so we should probably do another prediction.
Okay.
We have 4 left, and we have an hour to do it, so roughly every 15 minutes. Which one do you want to do now?
Whichever is the next one.
This one?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to pop a prediction up there. I'm Dark. Thank you for the Prime subscription. That is great. Spend Jeff Bezos money on Ask a Scientist Gaming. We appreciate the beer funds. You might as well do it. Walter, if you didn't know, if you have Amazon Prime, it turns out they give you a free subscription to a Twitch channel every single month. And so that comes directly out of Jeff Bezos' pocket and directly to us, and it pays for beer for us to talk science and play video games. So we definitely appreciate the support. So thank you. I'm Dark. And again, welcome to the stream. We appreciate your questions. We really enjoy our time here, and you guys make it all the better by giving us questions that we get to talk about and answer. And so we get to learn a lot during this process. All right, so we're going to pop up a prediction right now. Use your standard internet units. If you're not following, click follow and get your internet units. Oh, you're born with all the neurons. I have too many characters here. I thought I got this below 45. So for those of you that don't know, all these predictions we pop up, the question has to be below 45 characters and the answer has to be below 25. All right. Sorry, I've been doing some editing here. All right, there we go. So we're going to start a prediction right now. The question is, are we born with all the neurons we'll ever have? As in, from the day you're born, you have formed a certain number of neurons, and those neurons stick with you. They just wire differently and they expand. Or are we developing new neurons over time? So put your answer in there. Are we born, true or false, we're born with all the neurons we will ever have? Click true if you think that's true, or false if you think we develop new neurons over time. Go ahead and throw your predictions in there right now. It's a fun one. Do you have any context on this one or anything additional you want to throw in there?
I think it's pretty straightforward. I mean, I'll be curious to see what people say. Oh.
Yeah. I mean, this is this is what I have fun every time we do the Ask a Scientist, because I have a preconceived notion about what I think the response will be. And sometimes I'm right, but just like general chemistry tests, my perception can be way off. Like assumed knowledge versus even wording the question wrong. Man, it's a tough to guess ahead of time. All right, so make your predictions. Are we born with all the neurons we will ever have, or do we develop new neurons over time? Throw your prediction in there right now. You have about 45 seconds. Ooh, we got a bet on false, a whole bunch of bets on true. Oof. Shifting back and forth.
Okay. That's a good question then.
Yeah, no, this is a good one. I like it. The competition on the outcome here. Smaller. Just keeping track of what we've done. So this was college as well?
This must have been still high school. What year was this? 97 or so?
Ooh, I gotta throw it in here.
94? Maybe I'm completely wrong.
It was 1996.
So that was still high school.
Still, when did you graduate high school?
97.
97. Okay, I was 2000. It's relatively close. But also a system apart in terms of gaming.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. The turnaround was that fast. All right. So the question is, are we born with all the neurons we will have? And the answer is
Answer is false. Generally, it was assumed at one time that was true, but I think more and more we're learning that there are certain areas of the brain that seem to be growing new neurons even in adulthood. For example, I think it's pretty uncontroversial at this point that the hippocampus, an area that's really, really important for memory, seems to kind of develop new neurons. I mean, what's called neurogenesis, even into late adulthood. So it's something that we used to think was true, but now we know is false. And I mean, we've been able to identify it to kind of hippocampal regions, but also it's probably likely to be true of other regions as well. And there's about, let's see, 86 billion neurons in there overall.
Wow. So how many are we born with?
About this, I mean, about the same, but we kind of increase slowly over time. It's not the case that we kind of are growing tons and tons of neurons, but we do notice that neurogenesis can occur in certain areas of the brain. So it's not like we're growing millions of new ones.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so implicit into that is at some point you could like inject stem cells and like force that growth. Is that a viable thing?
Hopefully at some point in the future. I mean, we know that, yeah, like I said, for things like Parkinson's disease, that there are certain cells that die that produce dopamine that are really important. If we would be able to grow new cells that are producing dopamine, that would be really important for certain types of diseases, Parkinson's especially. But I mean, the traditional kind of way to deal with that now is to kind of modulate with through kind of medication dopamine levels. Mm-hmm. But if we could produce new cells, then that would solve the problem in a more direct way.
That makes sense. All right, Maximinimus has requested a factoid. Do you have a knowledge bomb you'd like to drop on people?
So I mean, I think, whoops, a factoid. I had a whole bunch ready. I mean,
on the spot.
Now I'm distracted. So I mean, I think one factoid that's interesting is going back to my kind of visual attention days, is the fact that we're essentially blind to the visual world while we're moving our eyes. Something called saccadic suppression, that we make saccadic eye movements from one location to another. They're fairly ballistic. They kind of get launched, and then there's very minimal kind of ability to change the trajectory while the eyes are in flight. And what we find is that during these very fast moving eye movements, people essentially don't process any visual information, which I think is really interesting in that we've been able to do some studies showing that,
this is the Indiana Jones level. I like it.
In kind of visual search types of tasks that we've given people, some people think that in order to find the target that they need to find, they have to search as hard as possible. So they end up making lots and lots of eye movements, and these are the people who tend to do really, really bad at the task, because they're essentially cutting themselves off from visual information during the task in a way that is kind of really harming performance. That there's a very, very strong correlation between the number of eye movements that people make and their performance in these tasks, because of the fact that we are essentially blind while we're moving our eyes. Oh.
Ouch. That's pretty close. I mean, so that's interesting. So that's something I've spent some time thinking about in terms of like procedural knowledge versus conceptual knowledge. I talked to my Gen Chem students about this in terms of like processing information is exhausting, right? And so when we drive a car, we zone out for a good portion of it, which is kind of terrifying, but true. And it's because we can't imbibe and process everything simultaneously, so we're very selective in our information, and this includes visual field, right? We don't see our noses. And so that's related to the eye motion and how that's unconscious, right?
Right. So I mean, it's kind of if you were to kind of process visual information as your eyes move from one location to another, you see this big kind of visual smear across the entire visual field because it's just kind of nonsense. Your eyes are moving so quickly, so it's kind of something that the brain tends to ignore, just like the blind spot. I mean, we have a blind spot in each of our eyes where the retina is built in kind of a crazy way where all the cells are backwards. So the axons that are coming out of those cells have to kind of go forward. Oh no!
Get your hands on it.
And come out of the back of the eye. So you need kind of a spot where for them to do that.
Oh.
So basically, for all those axons to kind of run through the retina, there has to be a spot for them to do that where there are no photoreceptors. And basically, there's kind of essentially no vision in that part of your eye on both of your eyes. But you can do these crazy tests where your brain basically fills in the pattern of kind of what's missing.
Yeah. That's terrifying and amazing.
Like that our brains just kind of do that. All right, Maximum Minimus has a question. Can you tell us your views on evolutionary psychology? Does it inform your research at all?
I think to some extent.
Did exasperated breath before the answer. Let's do it.
So, I mean, when I was a graduate student in my early career, I did a lot of research on what's called attention capture. What are the types of things, the changes in our environment that capture our attention automatically, even if we don't intend for that to happen? So I can give you a goal. So find the square among the circle, for example. I present it on a computer screen. And at some point while you're doing the search, a new object can appear in the display. I'm doing that every single time.
It's that ledge makes it. Oh, you still got it. Oh, how'd you not hit that ledge?
But basically, you can see people's eye movements, their volitional eye movements, completely redirected by things in their environment. So if a new item appears, even if it's completely irrelevant to your task, on a good proportion of those trials, people will look at that new item. And I always found that fascinating that there seem to be kind of rules of the brain that kind of violate your kind of intentional allocation of attention. You want to pay attention to one thing, and it says, nope, you're not paying attention to that thing. You're paying attention to this other new thing that's more interesting. And the reason why people think that happens is because new objects in our environment are biologically and evolutionarily relevant. It could be something that you could eat or something that's trying to eat you. So if something new appears in your environment, it kind of makes sense for the kind of visual system to say, hey, drop everything. We need to figure this out. And you can see that in eye movements. You can see that in reaction time. So to some extent, it has to, I mean, evolution does kind of inform kind of psychology in that extent in terms of if we're going to survive as a species, there are certain things that need to be hardwired in the brain for how we kind of allocate our attention in the environment.
Yeah.
But there are some aspects of social psychology that just kind of don't strike me as kind of, I mean, it's hard to test these theories because you don't know what would have happened if we evolved differently, essentially. You can't run that experiment to say, we pay attention to certain things in the, well, I mean, the attention stuff kind of makes sense. You can tell a good story, but there are kind of like evolutionary psychology stories about mate selection, for example, and some stories kind of seem, I keep on jumping the wrong time. Some stories just seem kind of, it's a good story, but then how do you test it?
Yeah. I mean, unlimited budget. No moral quality.
Yeah.
let's make another planet.
Yeah.
Just try our evolutionary selection event. I mean, yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, presumably it's one of the weird things. Like everything about us is a byproduct of evolution, but it doesn't mean that the byproducts were useful in evolution. It just made me a side product of it.
I keep on thinking that thing is the thing I need to jump over, but it's not the thing I need to jump over. It's the thing after that.
No worries. You're 2 hours into gaming.
Okay.
We understand. Oh, there is a game over. That's
okay.
Run out of lives. So where does it start you?
Hopefully not the beginning. Oh, it starts me at the beginning.
Oh, is that really it? That's brutal. All right, it's time for another prediction.
Okay.
Let's do it. These two.
I think we've kind of already answered that first question.
That's true.
Let's start with the second question, yeah.
All right. All right, we're going to throw another prediction up here. Anyone not following, click follow, get your 300 standard internet units. You can make a prediction based on the science question we're about to present to you. All right, so this one is related to expertise and how long does it take to become an expert. And the question is, Bobby Fischer is well-known chess savant, became a grandmaster at a really young age. The question is, how many years did it take for him to reach grandmaster? Is it less than 10 or greater than 10? Is there any additional context you want to apply to this one?
So yeah, I mean, I think there's a long history and interest of kind of what it takes to become an expert and how much time it takes to become an expert, and people have kind of rules that are out there for these types of things. I don't want to. That's basically all I can say and not give it away.
Yeah, not give away the answer. Yeah, we're not trying to bias the answer. The question is, Bobby Fischer became a grandmaster in chess. Grandmaster is the top tier of chess players. That's what is it? Less than 1% of chess players. It's a tiny fraction. That is probably the most like quantified expertise scaling system that exists for humans. I mean, they're obviously good basketball players, but they don't actually put a number on it. Grandmaster of chess actually is numerically defined how good you are at chess. So the question is, Bobby Fischer, a savant in chess, how long did it take? Was it less than 10 years or greater than 10 years? And for those of you looking for the qualifier, it is not exactly 10 years. So this question can be answered by you correctly. It's a fun one. All right, 45 seconds. Again, if anyone's not following, click the follow button, get your internet units, bet them right now on Bobby Fischer, the years it took him to become a grandmaster in chess. Greater than 10 years or less than 10 years. In retrospect, I should have put units on those 10s, but so it goes. Man, I can't believe it started you over at the start.
I know.
That's pretty brutal. You made it quite a ways, though. That was...
It did.
So I watched the speed run of this game. Apparently, when you do the spin, it makes you go forward slightly faster.
Okay.
So they basically spend 40 minutes just spinning forward as fast as they possibly can. All right, so it's closed. Years for Bobby Fischer to reach Grandmaster. Less than 10, greater than 10.
So it's less than 10. So, I mean, I think
than 10.
there are general rules of thumb for how long it takes to become an expert, and people talk about the 10-year rule, and they talk about the 10,000 hours of practice as something that requires you, that you need to go through to become an expert. But these are kind of, I mean, there's nothing magic about 10. There's nothing magic about 10,000. Basically, these rules or these guidelines were kind of developed just to say that it takes a long time of extended, intense practice to become an expert. So Bobby Fischer actually was 9 years for him to become a grandmaster.
9 years.
And I think the current records for kind of chess, I mean, people may be able to do this in 8 years, but basically there's nothing magic about kind of the 10-year rule or 10,000 hours of practice. And I think this kind of goes to the idea that some people say, well, experts are kind of people who are born with kind of really, they're born special some way. But I mean, if that would be the case, then it really wouldn't take someone 10 years to kind of become an expert. When you look at who becomes the kind of highest performers in their domain, if it were the case that people were born special and they had special abilities, you would actually predict that they would require less hours of practice to become an expert. But really, the best performers in their domain actually are accumulating more hours of practice, not less hours of practice. Ooh, come on.
Oof, nice. The answer is less than 10 years. Do you want to know the numbers? So 3 people bet less, 4 people bet more.
Okay.
But the people that bet more. So it was a 5-to-1 payout for those that said less than 10 years. So congratulations to everyone in chat that less than 10 years. So I looked up the numbers on recent Grand Chess Masters, or the records for Grand Chess Masters. So Magnus Carlsen, who's the #1 player right now, best in the world, has been for several years, started playing at 5 years old and reached Grandmaster at 13. 13 years and 148 days, which means he became a grandmaster in 8 years. Abahumya Marisha did it in 8 years as well. That's the youngest grandmaster at 12 years old. That's crazy. a 12-year-old who's a grandmaster in chess. I just, like, that has to be, I mean, we talked about that earlier in terms of parents, like, you are a chess master whether you want to be or not, right? I mean, at some point, yeah, that's an interesting take.
Yeah, I mean, it really highlights the importance for these kind of experts of the age of onset. I mean, when do you start kind of when do you start acquiring those hours of deliberate practice? And really, it's really important that if you're going to be kind of top in your field, that you have to start that early, because if you're going to accumulate those 8 to 10 hours, you have to get going.
Yeah. So I give a talk to the incoming chemistry students about like research productivity.
Yeah.
And one of the things I explicitly state, like, where you're starting right now doesn't necessarily matter, right?
Yeah.
It's time spent. Like, there's no question time spent. And I use the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours because it's easy math.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
basically, if you work 40 hours a week for 5 years, you have reached 10,000 hours. If you work 80 hours a week, you do that in half the time. I mean, it doesn't work proportionally like that, but that's the message I try to convey, because all that stuff about GRE and GPA and everything coming in, just, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Just put in the work. It's a different skill set. It's something you haven't practiced. Maybe it's the same in your field. You can tell me if I'm completely wrong. Actually, I have a video of it I should show you to you, because I'd love to know if I'm completely full
Okay.
of shit, but
Well, I mean, that's my experience. I mean, my GRE scores weren't exceptional, but I was willing to kind of work and put in more hours than a lot of, I think, my fellow graduate students. And yeah, I mean, you could be really, really smart, but I mean, if you don't put in the hours, you're not going to really get anywhere.
I mean, so, and Scuzzbot brings it up, and I'm curious about this as well, is like, when you think about the top athletes, like, you won't have the most dominant player in the NBA be below 6 feet tall, and that's almost entirely a genetic predisposition. So in cognitive fields, is that same genetic, there's got to be something that sways that distribution that's inherent, and then on top of that you have work hours?
So yeah, that's a really good question. I was really fortunate for most of my time at FSU to work with and meet weekly with Anders Ericsson, who is the world's expert in expertise. So the kind of guy that you would go to.
Yeah.
And I would ask him kind of, well, these types of questions, and he would say there were some things that in terms of sports that may be somewhat genetically determined. So if you're not very tall, if you're 5'5", you're probably not going to be a great basketball player.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there are things that are there are things that are somewhat environmental that determine height. Nutrition kind of determines height. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a big genetic component. And he kind of searched the literature kind of all of his life, trying to find examples of the same thing in cognitive expertise. And he never really came up with anything that seemed to be the same as kind of the height example. And his kind of interpretation, I think he's largely kind of won me over in that for cognitive types of variables, there wasn't the same thing as kind of a height component that was important in terms of kind of cognitive. I mean, chess, for example, you could say, well, maybe high IQ helps. But I mean, once you kind of reach a very, very high level performance, it's really about the hours of accumulated practice that build up representations and strategies that are extremely, extremely specific to that task. So overall, whether or not you're kind of smart or not, or kind of really, really highly much different in terms of IQ compared to someone else, if you have those representations, those cognitive representations that you built through practice, then those other things don't really matter as much, was kind of his argument. I've kind of come to believe that as well.
Yeah, I've seen that, and I mentioned that in the talk that I give, that it's something like above an IQ of 130, you're no more likely to get a Nobel Prize if you're 180. Like,
Yeah.
there's the cognitive threshold where if you have this intelligence, you don't gain additional points or productivity or results based on additional IQ points. So that's, I mean, and so is this fairly accepted, or is this still a discussion?
I think I think there's still folks who would say that there is a passcode. I don't know. What do I do?
No idea.
There's still some folks who would largely say that there is maybe a substantial genetic component to expertise. I don't know what's going on here. Okay.
We'll see.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that there is a kind of obviously some big major contribution of practice, but that there has to be some contribution of kind of innate abilities as well. And Anders would kind of put that on them and say, well, then if that's what you're claiming, you're going to have to show me what that is. I mean, what's the innate ability?
Swooshed.
Because according to his claim, practice can account for the large amount of kind of variance explained.
That's interesting. So in terms of cognition, that's the position. Physical ability, it might be genetic.
There are certain things, and also there are certain things that have to happen maybe at specific times in development as well. So if you're going to be kind of a great pitcher, you're going to have to be pitching at a young age where the kind of musculature and the bones are still flexible to allow you to kind of go back to the extent to which you can do what you need to do in terms of being kind of a good pitcher. But at some
Oh, wow.
I don't know what I did.
That was brutal. That was just bad timing.
But there are some things that might have to happen at the right time, and if you don't hit it at the right time, then it may be you won't be the top in your domain at that point.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I don't know why you keep getting squished.
All right. 10:30, I think we'll switch over to NARC. 5 more minutes of this. In the meantime, simple question. What's your favorite equation? Do you work with a lot of equations?
I mean, there are a lot of mathematical models for cognition that people, I mean, not exactly an equation, but there are mathematical models that will explain skill acquisition and learning, computer programs that will do that. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, we're not.
I mean, so you have a lot of error analysis.
Yeah, I mean, we have lots of statistics. I mean, statistics is kind of our way of determining kind of what's true or not in some sense, that there are statistical thresholds that if you did tests between two groups and looked at means of those groups, you do kind of, you look at the variance, you look at the means, and you do. So, I mean, if I had to pick a statistical test, I mean, nothing beats a good t-test or ANOVA that kind of gives you a very simple kind of answer.
Those are perfectly acceptable answers. I mean, that's when you know is something different, right? That's. I mean, that's such a non-trivial question.
Yeah.
Because I've done a lot of like test analysis, and I've like a paper published in Journal of Chem Ed using item response theory. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's like, how do you know something is different enough?
Yeah.
Because there's different numbers, obviously, but is it actually a meaningful number? And you don't know unless you do those statistics. And it's something we kind of neglect in a lot of our experiments, just because we're not necessarily the most accurate of measurements, but it's something we should be better at. We should probably have a statistics class in chemistry, and we don't do that. Biology, they might. I don't actually know. But yeah. All right. So I have a question I'm curious about just in general. So lab, we have this question about biggest mistake or accident in lab or most expensive mistakes. Do you have an expensive, costly scenario?
I mean, we do. I mean, it's not exactly expensive, but it can be kind of unpleasant. I mean, we've done, I mean, driving simulator studies for a long time, and some people get cyber sick or simulator sick, and sometimes people throw up in your experiment, and
on your computer on the
I mean, and then there's kind of a cleanup process involved, and it's not pleasant for anyone, but it's just.
Like, do you have a biohazard bag? Do you have a
well, I mean, we had kind of we would kind of keep things kind of a cleanup kit, and I mean, obviously, it's not a great kind of experience for the participant as well. So we'd have kind of food and drink for them, and kind of a place for them to rest. But that's just a kind of a hazard of running driving simulator experiments in
That's
general.
amazing. What percentage of people, like, is that a...
It varies as a function of age, it varies as a function of gender. So we don't know why exactly, but older adults and especially older women tend to be more susceptible to simulator sickness compared to other groups. And there's not really a good explanation.
Wow.
You'd think that we'd have better theories of kind of cyber sickness or simulator sickness at this point, but we really don't know exactly why it happens. I mean, we know it happens because of some mismatch between vestibular information and visual information. My favorite theory, and this was a theory that was kind of published in the 70s, was that basically simulator sickness, or the process of being in a simulation, your brain reads that as being poisoned, that your vestibular information is giving you some information, your visual information is giving you another separate information that doesn't correlate, and your brain interprets that as being poisoned, so basically you throw up because you want to expel the poisons from your body. I don't think it's a generally well accepted theory, but I think it's a really interesting theory for why do people experience that sickness.
I mean, from an evolutionary perspective, that is intriguing, right? Because we've never encountered that, virtual stimuli, but we do know poisons and the reaction that would respond. Like, that's intriguing. So you vomit to try to get rid of the poison your brain thinks it's having because it can't process it anyway. That is amazing. I don't know how you study that, but that is... that deserves a DD Sagan. That's a moment of profundity, or at least intrigue associated with it. You vomit because you think you're poisoned.
But I mean, I'm a very bad driving simulator participant or pilot participant because I get extremely simulator sick. And I remember doing a study in graduate school that for another graduate student, they wanted to pilot test their study. And I was in their driving simulator study, and I just had to go home and lie down for an entire day. It just wrecked my entire day. I was so sick. So I couldn't be a participant in my own studies.
So I did if you go to Universal Studios, they have the roller coaster rides associated with the screens. Like the one I remember in particular is Transformers. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I had to stare at the floor and just hope I didn't vomit and get to the end of it. Like I don't know if I'm getting old. Like if my daughter's asked me to ride on it, I'm gonna say no on this one because I lack that ability. But we're back to the Indiana Jones.
And I'm gonna make the same mistake.
No worries. It is almost time for NARC.
Okay. I just want to get past that one point that I just cannot get past. I know the mistake.
Yeah, just walk over this thing.
Yes, that's not a real thing. Yes.
There it is. We got this. Have you beaten this level?
Not yet.
Oh, that was close.
Okay, I'm done with this game.
Nope. You want to try one more?
Sure.
All right.
Okay.
All right, last try here. Could make a prediction on it, but let's not. Time's running short. But we'll be silent. The pressure is on.
Okay, I'm not going to even attempt to get anything. Oh, come on!
Oh, the wall. Hitboxes. Oh, that was enough.
Okay.
Now it's a vendetta. So what I tell every one of my guests is, you should just commit to speedrunning this.
Yes.
And just take that vendetta with you. 15 minutes a night. You're an expert in what, 35 years? I like it. That's a clean run.
So far, so good. Oh, why did I do that? My perceptual system just reads that as barrier, and it just...
That's how they get you.
Is it poor game design, or am I just really bad at this?
Or an excellent game design.
Yeah.
That's how you eat the quarters, right? All right, last try.
Last try.
Let's do it.
At some point, you just overthink the mistake so much that you're just gonna you're bound to do it.
Yeah. So it's the visual field issue again. Focus too much on. Oh,
Come on. Okay, this is as far as I've
Yes.
ever made it, but now I've got to.
you got a checkpoint.
Oh no! Now it's got.
Nice.
That should be enough. I mean, the game, the level should be over.
Oh no.
I'm
You got
not gonna
this.
be
You got
fooled by
this.
that one.
Well, first try this. Oh, short on the jump.
Ah.
That was a beautiful try, though.
I don't think I'm gonna make it.
Well done.
Okay.
All right. Should we move on to NARC?
Sure.
10:34. It's time to win the war on drugs, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
Are you ready? the perennial favorite at Ask a Scientist Gaming. We play NARC every single time. You know, use the Nintendo
Okay,
controller.
Nintendo.
Going
That
back
takes
to
me back.
the rectangular hand gouging
Okay.
game playing. This is
Yes, I
NARC.
know.
Anyone
I
that's
can't
familiar
believe
with
this
the
is a
game?
real game.
Oh yes, this is the war on drugs. We're gonna win it tonight.
Okay.
The license plate just says no. Go ahead and press start.
Okay.
All right. So brief instructions on the controller. So
Okay.
A is gonna be shoot.
Okay.
If you hold it down, it's shoot. If you tap it, it's a rocket.
Okay.
B button. If you tap it, it's jump. If you hold it, it's squat. And
These
they
are
made-
terrible controls.
So they made clever use of the controls they had available. You had 2 buttons, but you can do 4 actions through the NARC control system. And so your basic idea here is there's no advantage to kill these guys. You just want
Okay.
to walk right
Oh,
until
right.
you see a door,
I got some money.
and you have infinite lives, infinite rockets, infinite bullets, and now it's time to just shoot drug dealers in the street because we just do vigilante justice and Ask Scientist Gaming.
Wow, those guys blew up real good.
Yep, exactly. And so this is one of the early games that raised red flags in terms of violence in video
Okay.
games. So you're always going right except
Okay.
for one particular level. All right, so I'll do a general question from my list. What was your I made it as a scientist moment?
I mean, I think when you get your dissertation published, that's that's a huge. That was really important for me. I don't know. I mean,
So that's interesting. So in psychology, in grad school, you will get only a couple papers, right? I mean, that's if you're lucky.
it depends. I think I had coming out of graduate school, 14 papers or so.
Wow.
It all depends on kind of the type of research that you do. So,
Yeah.
I did a lot of visual search, attention capture, kind of visual processing types of experiments, and those are really easy to run. You get someone, you put them in front of a computer, you kind of show them things, and they push buttons. So if you're doing intervention research, that's obviously very different, where you might have 2 or 3 publications.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I think as an academic, promotion and tenure are kind of things where you think, oh, I've made it now, and
Yeah. So anticlimactic though, isn't it?
I'm afraid, I'm afraid to say that for kind of any PhD students out there, but when you kind of defend your dissertation and when you kind of finally finish, it's not like it's like, oh, it's finally over. It's not like, I don't know if that was how it was for you, but
It's weird because right after defending, you're like, I'm Doctor so and so.
Yeah.
Nobody calls you that.
No.
The first time I got called doctor was probably when I was hired here, and
Yeah.
grad students saw me, and my wife was with me, and they're like, "Hey, Dr. Hansen," it opened her eyes because it's a weird thing, right?
I watched there's the Netflix show, I think it was Netflix, the Chair. It's a show about kind of an academic kind of English department and then kind of what it's like in academia. And Sandra Oh plays this. Oh, where do I need to go?
Grab that card.
Okay.
Yep. So to shoot the dogs, you have
Okay.
to squat and
Okay.
shoot. So hold both A and B down, and then there you go.
But-
You already got it.
In the show, Sandra Oh plays this chair of this English department, and her child asks her, "Why do they call you a doctor? You never help people." I just thought that was the most hilarious line.
I mean, it's mostly true.
Yeah.
I mean, this is brutal too in chemistry. Like, if we're going to be honest with ourselves, most of what we do will contribute very little to the advancement of society. But the hope is 1 out of 1,000 of the things we discover actually is useful. So you have the blue card. You can go in the door now.
Okay.
I forgot to start the timer. I apologize.
Oh, I see it now.
Speed run the game, but not in this case. All right, anyone just joining us, this is Ask a Scientist Gaming, mediocre gameplay, expert level science. We're playing NARC, which is us winning the war on drugs. This game was designed and coded by Nancy Reagan. Just kidding, that's not true, but as a byproduct of that age. It's also not a great game, but kind of a fun one to play and blow up people. But also joining us today is Wally Boot. Wally is an expert in cognition and learning, studying learning, and particularly via technology that influences learning outcomes and trying to understand their impact. So if you have any questions, throw them in chat. We want to learn all about cognition and training and how video games influence things. So you can jump in the car.
How do we jump?
So it's tap B instead of hold B. If you it's
right,
weird. I don't remember the numbers. Scuzzbot can correct me on this, but it's something like if you hold tap B for 2 to 7 frames, you can jump in the car.
I did it.
Oh, just jump once, because then you're jumping out.
Okay.
Jump in. But try it again. You're in.
Okay. Now we can just run them over. Wow, that's...
Yep.
That's
And here's the
one.
tragedy of it.
Oh, why?
It's a pattern you have to memorize. I
Okay.
apologize. That merits the rage, because that
I'm
happens
assuming that I
every
don't want to
single
walk
time.
on the landmines, which are
Exactly.
obviously put out there.
Yep. So this is NARC. Oh, I like it. All right, we should do one more prediction for the night.
Okay.
Those of you guys that are still around with us, we're going to do one directly related to NARC. And it is related to ESBR ratings. Again, you're on Ask a Scientist Gaming honor code. Do not look up the answer. Instead, make your best guess. So the ESBR rating system is a system implemented to inform parents about the, violence associated with the game. So you have to jump to get past that. So ESBR is what you see with the teen and adult, and I don't even remember what the categories are. So tap B.
B, okay.
Yep, there you go.
Okay. Like the dimensions, like I didn't even read that as like a 3D obstacle.
The graphics are not great. All right, so those of you just around, so ESBR is a rating system. It was basically designed to help parents decide whether they should buy games for the kids. The question is, when was that system implemented? Was it 1994 or 1988? Keep in mind, the earliest video games came in the 70s. They didn't start to really take off until the 80s. The question is, when did people decide we need to start rating those games so we can make informed decisions about buying those games from parents that won't necessarily play them, but definitely know that they exist? So the question is, 1988 versus 1994. Throw your guesses in there right now. For those still around, it's getting late in the night.
Yeah.
And so the reason we're putting this on for NARC is NARC was one of the early games that was controversial, because you can see that when the dog bites, there's blood being generated. Pixelated and not particularly high quality, but it still exists. Also, rockets, when you blow people up, they actually turn into body parts flying through the air. So this is one of the early controversial games. So a discussion regarding, whether they should be a rating system, whether these are bad for kids. Are they damaging our children by playing them? Are they making school shooters by playing the game NARC? Presumably not anymore, but who knows? All right, you have about 15 to 20 seconds. Throw your guesses in now. The year of origin ESBR rating system. That's the ratings associated with games, and I think they legally had to be put on games, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
When was it? 1994 or 1988? All right. So we're closed. Wally, the answer is
1994.
1994.
Thanks to Joe Lieberman and some others in Congress.
So apparently in 1993, there was a congressional hearing led by Joe Lieberman, as well as a few other people, that looked at games like Mortal Kombat, Night Trap, and Doom. Mortal Kombat and Doom, I know. Night Trap, I had to look up. That was one of the live action games.
Okay.
Where they had people act out scenes and you can control their destination. But these were controversial because they showed blood, they showed body parts. And so they they decided they needed a congressional hearing. And so I guess the question for you is this founded in anything psychology based?
Very poorly, I guess, would be my answer. It's not very well founded. So I mean, actually, in 2005, California passed a law in which you couldn't, if you were a child, if you were a minor, you couldn't buy a kind of video game that was violent without parent permission. You had to have your parent there. And then there was a lawsuit that was followed after that in California. It actually went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court looked at this case and said, well, and this was, 2005 was the law. I think 2008 was in the Supreme Court decision. Mm-hmm. They said, no. I mean, civil liberty kind of issues aside, there's just really, really bad evidence to suggest that video games are causing aggression or violence. And I think really the people who believe that, the researchers who believe that are really kind of in the minority at this point. To be able to show that video game play actually has meaningful kind of impact on people's aggressive... Oh, sorry.
No worries. You didn't pick the other doors, which are useless. Okay. This is the door you want to go in.
But I think, I mean, people still debate this pretty hotly. But I think more people, more researchers kind of believe in general that the kind of impact of kind of violent games on people's aggression or violent behavior, it's completely overblown.
It's overblown, or so there is a trend, or?
Well, I mean, it depends on how you measure aggression. And I think one of the reasons why people find it ridiculous is that they measure aggressive behavior in these studies in very, very odd and unnatural ways. So, I mean, let me go this way. I mean, you can think about some of these studies. Okay, is this a good?
Yep, that's exactly right.
Where they might kind of measure aggression, where you might blast a competitive partner in this reaction time task with white noise, like loud noise. It's like, is that really aggression? Or you might have to be asked to put like hot sauce into a cup and make the person drink it. So it's like, is that...
That's aggression.
Is that really aggression? Or like they do these wasabi studies where they have people, and then you have to assign kind of wasabi to the partner if they lose, or the person you're playing with.
Yeah.
And it turns out that people who play the violent video games will kind of give more wasabi for the other person to eat compared to if they played a violent video game compared to Tetris. And these are kind of meaningless, very kind of weird ways to measure.
Yeah, that doesn't translate to shooting up a school, right?
Yeah.
So this is the only level you go left on.
Okay.
Sorry if I didn't want to interrupt. But it's important info. And now you're collecting marijuana plants, apparently.
Really?
Yep.
That's what those are. They look like Christmas trees.
And some have bombs on them and are guarded by Rambo-looking individuals. So you have to shoot the Rambo guy to get a green card to beat this particular level. All right, so the fears about video games creating school shooters is unfounded.
Yeah, no, I think that the evidence is extremely weak, and it's a big kind of leap. And I mean, even when you look at kind of just the massive increase in the sales of those types of games versus the kind of increase in violence, you don't see kind of matching trends. I mean,
so just empirically, it's just not happening.
So I need a safe.
So yeah, you have to shoot the Rambo-looking guy with a gun, but not the rocket.
Oh, okay.
The rocket, for some reason, doesn't drop key cards. I know more about this game than I probably should, but yeah, the shooting aspect. There was an awesome, I don't know, satirical take on that. I think it was a tweet at some point. It was like in the 70s. It was like, if video games resulted in those actions, referring to Pac-Man, people would be just running around chewing on pills, flashing lights are going, and loud music is playing. And obviously reference to raves and what happened post drug use in the 90s. Blame it on Pac-Man, but none of it holds true, right? Anyway, so presumably you playing NARC is not going to create not going to create a violent shooter. All right, so that was our last prediction of the night. Again, anyone just joining us, we're in the last 12 minutes of Ask a Scientist Gaming. We'll finish this game no matter what.
Okay.
We got to beat a second one tonight. But if you have questions, throw them in the chat last minute. True. People playing Mortal Kombat are not going to pull out a heart. They might try. We don't know. But Mortal Kombat was one of the big ones. That was one of the that really set it off because it was so popular. And the assumption was people were going to be violent. Little do they know, you have to train to become that good at fighting. So you have to actually practice physical skills.
The names, I mean, Big Bank, they had, the restaurant was called La Snob. They've got really interesting names for all these.
Oh, there's a fun story behind that. So this is the Quack Lobby.
Okay.
So this used to be an arcade game, but it got ported to Nintendo. But
Okay.
Nintendo has a bit of a squeaky clean image, right? It's the home of Kirby and Mario. And so they changed Crack to Quack. And all the
okay.
nomenclature is just softened when they put it on Nintendo. But they kept the blood and the exploding body parts, so I don't entirely know. Mr. Big, was this from Sex and the City? We'll have to find out. Let's see what Mr. Big looks like. Also, Sex and the City was from this. This predates all of that. So you have these cards already.
Okay.
Is this from Sex and the City? Don't you remember that episode? The Quack Lobby? Oh, wait till you get to the boss on this. This is the reason we play this game, is because you're about 2 levels away from the boss right now. Is this from Sex and the City? Oh, there you go.
So, did it turn into a smaller dog?
Exactly.
So the people blow up, but the dogs turn into smaller.
Smaller dogs. You can't kill dogs on a Nintendo game, right? You can only make them into puppies and they drive away. Are those monks
They do
shooting?
look like
No,
monks.
those are guys with trench coats and no clothes underneath, as far as I can tell. So they're flashers. You found the power of the rockets in this game. Yeah, we've clearly lost the war on drugs when this was an actual byproduct of it.
Pennywise.
Pennywise clowns with a knife.
Okay, this Mr. Big. Oh, yeah.
Yep, there's Mr. Big in his wheelchair. All right, I'm going to let you battle this for a while. Both him and his next manifestation are non-trivial fights, and not
Okay.
because they're hard, but because the hitboxes and the gameplay is jank. And by that I mean it's hard to do it. But so it goes. All right, in the meantime, let's throw some questions at you. What do you think the next major breakthrough in your field will be in the next 10 years? Like changes the way people think about the world.
That's a really good question. I don't know if I have a really good answer. Now all of a sudden he appears.
Yep.
But I mean,
Nice. Crawls away.
I think we're beginning to understand the brain in a much more nuanced and complex way than we could ever before, due to advances in imaging, due to advances in kind of mathematical modeling and artificial intelligence. I think we're going to learn a lot more about the brain and how it works compared to what we know now. I mean, you think about kind of traditional cognitive psychology models of how cognition works. It's often been like these box models that this happens and this happens and this happens, and really we all know that that's not how we actually think, that there's kind of dynamic systems at play that are processing information and feed forward and feed backwards, and I think we're going to get much closer to hopefully understanding how cognition works.
So I'll give you a hint on wheelchair. You got to hit him with a rocket.
Okay.
That's the tap A button. Yep, there you go. You just got to time it up with him. Yes, it's a terrible fight. I apologize for this. Schmo Knight, the torture. Why do we do this to people? I agree. It's tradition at this point. We can't say no to it.
Oh.
There you go. You need one more hit on him as he inchworms away. It gets worse, Scuzzbot says. He's right. The next manifestation.
I just realized that when you shoot the smaller dogs, then they die.
Oh, do they? I didn't
I
even
think
notice.
so.
Testable hypothesis.
I want to.
Anyway, back to the major discovery. I mean, you're working in a really fun field where there's this convergence between neurobiology and psychology and artificial intelligence. Like, they're all coming from the same problem from different angles, and it's got to be glorious to watch as an insider, because even as an outsider, I'm fascinated.
Yeah, I think we've been working more and more with folks from kind of with expertise in artificial intelligence, and I think there's so many kind of exciting things that we can do. And I mean, even in terms of kind of technology design, so we think about designing technology for older adults who may be experiencing cognitive impairment to help them in their everyday lives. Typically, we think about designing the technology, and that's kind of
Tape.
and that's kind of a static. Oh yeah,
There he is. That's 3.
that's so.
That's 3 on big.
Kind of oh no. But I think there's a lot that we can think about in terms of artificial intelligence for adaptive systems, that not only do you get to learn how to use the system, but the system gets to know you. And you can design kind of systems that are dynamic, and you think about things, for example, like cognitive aging or dementia, and as people kind of, oh my goodness, get progressively kind of, their cognition might get progressively worse with dementia. Can we design technology that can adapt to that, and kind of keep people using technology that will be useful for them over time by the system learning the person's kind of cognition, their abilities? I think there are really exciting things to do in terms of adaptive systems that incorporate intelligence.
All right, so I'll give you a hint on this. The first thing you have to do is you have to jump and shoot a rocket in his head.
Oh, okay.
So mid-jump, you have to do a rocket.
So it's...
Yep, exactly like that. Slightly sooner, and yeah, it's just a timing thing in this. There you go.
Sunglasses came
Yep.
out.
What is Mr. Big spitting out? Salami slices? No, it's his tongue.
Such a weird game.
Yes. Now he shoots lasers out of his eyes. So phase 1, it's his tongue. Phase 2 is laser.
Oh.
There you go. So now it's bullets on this vertebrae. The hitboxes on this are very jank, so you just kind of have to go up and down until... so whole day, just rapid fire. I apologize. This is the game, so I was my own guest on this. I had Eugene DePrince host, and this is when I played, because as a kid, this was the bargain bin game that we got. Mm-hmm. So if you go to further down on the screen,
Okay.
it kind of gives you a closer opportunity. But yeah, in terms of like the neurobiology aspect of it, so correct me if I'm wrong, but they've like connected 6 or so neurons and like recreated worm brains, and they're like building up from the bottom up in terms of assembling complexity.
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating in some ways in that there's a really great Onion article that came out. It must have been a long time ago, that where psychologists give up that the human brain is too complex to understand itself. I mean, it is a really kind of difficult problem to try to understand something that's so complex that allows us to study ourselves.
All right, so we're winding down sometime soon. Does anyone have suggestions on people we should raid? Walter, if you're not familiar, raid is basically us and our audience go to visit somebody else on Twitch.
Okay.
Typically science and technology, but we're not discriminate. If somebody has any suggestions, throw those in chat right now. We'll take a look. I'll let Walter make the ultimate decision where we should go with our audience. My advice on fighting this one is start on the bottom and shoot like bottom of the screen and then shoot back. It's really weird because this, for some reason, the hitbox is not only dependent on where you are on the screen, but when you move to that location. It's really jank, and we don't know how it works yet. Ooh, we have a neuroscience PhD. Nikwan Data Sci. Take a look.
I just don't know what I'm doing.
That's fun. And the cartographers. That's pretty fun. We're not going to raid the duck channel. So there's a stream that's just ducks.
Just ducks.
And you can donate money to feed the ducks. Shimon, I'm one that has watched the duck channel more than once just because it's a soothing, relaxing view of ducks. Oh, there you got another one. Down to 4.
It's so frustrating.
Oh yeah, no, this is a terrible fight. I can show you the fast version if you want to see it after this.
It's just...
Yeah. No. So go down to the bottom of the screen.
Okay.
It's basically the strategy is walk to the right, move up a little bit, turn around and shoot, and hope
Okay.
you've hit the right hitbox. Nikwan data side. That sounds like fun. Let's... PhD in neuroscience. He's playing a cartography game. That's pretty fun. We're so close. 3 more vertebrae. Dumb question, but would it be possible to get a brain transplant since worm brains can be rebuilt?
That's a really interesting question.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah, there it is.
that was
Yep.
exhausting.
All right, the game's not over yet. There's still one
Oh,
more
no.
level. So go up to the key card. This level's easy. It's called Civil Forfeiture, the level.
Really?
Yep. Now you get his gold. Wally, I'm sorry. I volunteered you for this. It's near and dear to our hearts. If it makes you feel any better, so about a month ago, I was challenged to speedrun this game as fast as possible. And as of a week ago, I'm officially the world record in beating
wow.
this game. So, yeah, this has been an ongoing. There it is. You have officially won the war on drugs.
Okay.
Congratulations. It's 10:59. That is perfect timing.
Okay.
So you beat Vampire Savior, or what was it? Darkstalker 3. Surprise victory on that one. Had some fun with Sonic. Had some fun with Tekken, winning a few fights.
Oh, wow.
Put your initials in. Save it for posterity. Congratulations. But that is actually perfect timing. All right, everyone. So that is Ask a Scientist Gaming. Thank you, everyone, for swinging by. Again, we have a lot of fun. Regardless of the audience, we would hang out here, play video games, but your questions really make this what moves it forward. We really enjoy the discussion. Wally, thank you for visiting. Thank you for taking time to talk with me and play video games. This is a weird ask of a professor at FSU, but Wally was kind enough to say yes. Any parting words for the audience?
Well, thanks. I mean, this has been a lot of fun, and yeah, just I'm easy to find. Walter Boot, just search in Google. So if you have any additional questions, I'm happy to answer those. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's been great. Again, join us in 2 weeks. I think our schedule is pretty consistent the rest of the semester. We had a 3-week break to this stream, but next, I think in 2 weeks, we have Jim Fadul's making up for a previous one that got canceled. He's a biology professor. He actually studies neurobiology. He actually looks at zebrafish and how vision forms and things like that. So 2 weeks from now, join us. I think we'll be starting out with Space Invaders is probably where we'll start, or Pac-Man. It's one of those two. But yeah, 2 weeks. You can join us on our Discord or check out our Twitter channel to get updates on when people are streaming. But 2 weeks from now, it'll be Jim Fadul. Until then, we're going to do a quick raid, so stick around. But again, Wally, thanks for coming by, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys next time.